Chapter 2705. So strong! Yi Shiwen exclaimed. He wasn't talking about Yi Mo's fist strength, but about his understanding of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Others couldn't figure out what kind of fist technique this was, but Yi Shiwen could easily figure it out. His understanding of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist had already reached the pinnacle of perfection. However, it was only a few sets of fist techniques, nothing more. There was still a long way to go before he could thoroughly integrate these 6 sets of fist techniques. Yi Shiwen knew that when the Azura Demon King used the 6 paths of reincarnation fist, there weren't 6 different fist techniques. There was only one. The power of the 6 paths smashed apart all resistance from the myriad worlds. It was an extremely domineering and supreme style. However, apart from the Azura Demon King, no one else was able to completely master the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Even his descendants were no exception. It was too difficult to learn the 6 paths of reincarnation fist in one go. Therefore, the Azura Demon King split the 6 paths of reincarnation fist into 6 fist techniques. Although none of the 6 fist techniques could be compared to the complete 6 paths of reincarnation fist, any one of them could be cultivated to the pinnacle level and be invincible among the king-ranked experts. The supreme style of integrating the 6 paths of reincarnation fist was something that only a few people in the entire Azura race had ever achieved. Even though they were not as powerful as the Azura Demon King, they had left a glorious page in the history of the Azura race. They could be called geniuses. However, it was rumored that those people had already passed away. Yi Shiwen didn't have the chance to see how powerful the complete 6 paths of reincarnation fist was. Although he had the complete cultivation method of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist, his understanding of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist had not been able to completely integrate them. If he waited until he completely merged the 6 paths of reincarnation fist, his cultivation would once again rise to a new limit. He wasn't in a hurry to cultivate. Many times, once one's understanding of cultivation reached a certain level, success would follow naturally. There was no need to be anxious because there was no use in being anxious. He only knew that Yi Mo had an extremely deep understanding of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to teach him. However, he didn't expect Yi Mo to have such a deep understanding. Just this punch alone had overturned the laws of the universe. Everything revolved around the 6 paths of reincarnation to rebuild the world. Yi Shiwen was capable of destroying a world, or even the laws of destruction. However, Yi Shiwen couldn't recreate the laws of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist with him as the absolute center. This was because the world wasn't the divine kingdom. The gods could do whatever they wanted in the divine kingdom, but the world had its own rules. No one was allowed to tamper with them. Not to mention, this kind of self-centered molding was even more of a miracle. Boom! Yi Mo's fist was earth-shattering, forming into a massive 6 paths of reincarnation that pressed down. All those who resisted were resisting the 6 paths of reincarnation. Vaguely, everyone could feel that there was a supreme existence watching over everything. How is this possible? This feeling? Could it be the Azura Demon Lord? Could it be that the rumors are true? I remember now. It was recorded in the ancient books of our Azura clan that if one could cultivate the 6 paths of reincarnation fist to its peak, one could even summon the will of the Azura Demon Lord that was scattered in the world. Even if it was just the will of the Demon Lord, it was enough to suppress all opponents and sweep away all obstacles. However, that was only a legend because no one had ever achieved it. Since ancient times, only the eldest son of the Azura Demon Lord had cultivated the 6 paths of reincarnation fist to such a level. A long time ago, the eldest son of the Azura Demon Lord had cultivated the 6 paths of reincarnation fist to its peak and fought with an invincible genius of the human clan. After he was defeated, he was killed by the eldest son. That person later proved his Tao and became the supreme emperor. Since then, no one has cultivated the 6 paths of reincarnation fist to such a level. Who is he? Could he be the eldest son of the Azura Demon Lord? Some people from the Azura clan had already determined that this was not the Lord of Darkness. After all, when the Lord of Death was wreaking havoc in the world, as the right-hand man of the Lord of Death, the Lord of Darkness had already been suppressed. How could he have come out? Someone must have reincarnated in someone else's body and cultivated it to such a level. Everyone was curious as to who it was that had borrowed the body of the Lord of Darkness to be able to cultivate the 6 paths of reincarnation fist to such a level, and even reach a level that even the Lord of Darkness had not reached when he was alive. That person seemed to be even stronger than the 10 great kings. Although no one knew who this person was, he must have been a famous existence in the long river of history. It was impossible for him to be a nobody. Among the many speculations, the eldest son of the Azura demon lord was the most likely. This was because of the extremely powerful 6 paths of reincarnation fist and the extremely exquisite demonic skills that he possessed. There was even an ancient aura about him. Although everyone's demonic skills were passed down from ancient times, there had been great changes over the years. However, the demonic aura of this person's demonic skills only gave people a feeling of vicissitudes. This feeling was especially strong for the demons, especially some of the old antiques who had lived for a very long time. However, they now felt that the demonic skills of this person were even more ancient than the most ancient times that they knew. It was simply unimaginable. In particular, the experts of the Azura tribe were looking forward to it. It would be great if this person was the eldest son of the Azura demon lord. With such a person coming back to life, the Azura tribe would be able to reach a new peak. As for the body not belonging to the Azura tribe, there was no problem at all. If I can't see it, then it must be the Azura tribe. Let me think. I once read in an ancient book that besides the Azura tribe, there seemed to be someone else who had obtained the complete inheritance of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Moreover, it was an exchange with the Azura demon lord. Although the ancient book didn't mention it in detail, to be able to exchange with the Azura demon lord on an equal footing, I'm afraid that it was also a supreme expert. This person may not be the son of the Azura demon lord, but he could be the nephew of that supreme expert, right? Someone suddenly said. It seemed that it was recorded in the ancient book, but he had never taken it seriously. After all, a legend was just a legend. Even if it was recorded in the ancient book, it could not be seen with one's own eyes. It was just a rumor that was recorded in the book. Although the 6 paths of reincarnation fist had spread very widely due to various reasons. At most, only one set of fist skills have been learned. This kind of method that could completely integrate the 6 paths of reincarnation fist was also a supreme secret in the Azura tribe. It was impossible for outsiders to know about it. Because no one had ever learned it, it had always been placed in the holy land of the Azura tribe. No one could get close to it, so naturally, there was no such thing as it being lost. Now that they thought about it, it was actually possible. The people of the Azura tribe were extremely conflicted. They naturally hoped that this person was the eldest son of the Azura tribe, but it seemed that the hope was not very high. Otherwise, if there was a chance to escape from the disaster, he would have already come back to them. But if it was not for the fact that their clansmen had cultivated the 6 paths of reincarnation fist to such a level, it would be extremely embarrassing for them. It was a complete slap to their faces, and they were extremely conflicted. Just as everyone was conflicted, the battle had reached a white-hot stage. The middle-aged man in moon-colored robes gathered boundless power of the moon and continuously defended against the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. The more he fought, the more depressed he became. Yemo did not play by the rules at all. The blood on his body was so strong that it was terrifying, and he showed no signs of exhaustion at all. A fist skill like the 6 paths of reincarnation fist consumed a lot of magic power and blood. Ordinary people would not be able to endure it, and it was almost treated as a trump card. However, Yemo didn't seem to be aware of this. Or rather, he didn't have the slightest intention of stopping. Otherwise, with his status as one of the 10 great kings, he wouldn't be in such a passive position. He wouldn't be in such a sorry state in front of the allied army. What do you think, Pure Moon Monarch? Do you feel it? This is what it feels like to be slapped in the face. I'm going to slap your face in front of everyone. Do you submit? Yemo laughed and said. Pure Moon Monarch immediately roared again and again. His expression was extremely ugly. He had been slapped in the face by a failure who had reincarnated by luck. It was a complete humiliation. "You damned demon! Watch me crush you." Pure Moon Monarch's magic power surged even more. The power of the moon rolled out like thunder as he attacked Yemo. "I heard that you wanted to convene the highest council to punish Yi Shiwen. I wrote a letter personally, but you tore it in front of me. How dare you slap me in the face? Fine, I'll personally come to you and show you what it means to be slapped in the face. I want everyone to know that you are trash." Yemo said coldly. In the distance, Yi Shiwen's eyes turned cold. There was no longer any kindness in his eyes as he looked at Pure Moon Monarch. So there was such a dispute. Something like this had happened while he was away. Yi Shiwen has violated the rules of the Allied army. He has even gone crazy and uprooted a royal family. He is simply a demon alive. Such a dangerous person must be suppressed. Pure Moon Monarch's expression was ugly, but his tone was firm and unyielding. "Why don't you say that the Demon Eagle King went to the divine prison to kill him first? I didn't do anything, but that doesn't mean I don't know anything. You say that I am crazy? Then I'll let you know what I'm like when I'm deranged." Yemo sneered, and the blood-red color on his body suddenly intensified. Chapter 2706. Demonic chi erupted from Yemo's body, shining with a cold light. His body grew larger and larger, reaching tens of thousands of meters in the blink of an eye. In this universe, the stars could only circle around his waist. It was impossible for them to be taller than him. Yemo's foot descended from the sky and came crashing down. He had no intention of leaving King Pure Moon any face. He was going to trample on him. King Pure Moon was not going to be outdone. He let out a loud roar, and a wheel began to spin in his hand. It grew larger and larger as it spun. Countless runes and formations appeared, and they shot out in all directions. The entire wheel turned into a bright moon that kept spinning. It was like a real moon had appeared, and it possessed boundless power. This was his life's supreme quality god weapon. He would not allow Yemo to trample on his dignity. "You think you can trample on my dignity?" King Pure Moon roared, shaking the entire universe. His chi and blood shot up into the sky, bursting forth like a thunderstorm. As one of the top monarchs in the universe, it could be said that those who submitted to him would prosper, while those who opposed him would perish. He was invincible and would never allow anyone to act presumptuously above his head. Yemo's foot came crashing down, colliding with the bright moon. The terrifying sound of the collision shook the entire universe, and brilliant light erupted. "So what if I trample on you? I'm going to slap you in the face today." Yemo sneered. He didn't even make any superfluous movements. He just kept stomping on the ground. There didn't seem to be any abnormal scene, but the entire universe was violently trembling. Blazing rays of light burst out. The violent trembling was unknown how many stars were annihilated in an instant. It spread out and turned this place into a land of death. Even though there were many formations that had been set up by the Allied army, they could not withstand such a crazy trampling. King Pure Moon's face was red. Half of it was from anger, and the other half was from Yemo's terrifying power. His entire body was trembling, and his chi and blood were in turmoil. This was a terrifying battle that he had not seen in hundreds of thousands of years. Countless people were watching the battle from inside the fortress, but none of them dared to get close. If they did, they would be crushed to death. Many people were sighing. These were truly troubled times. The matter of the Tian clan had not been resolved yet, and such a thing had happened. Yi Shiwen alone was already lawless enough. Not to mention, Yemo's strength was even stronger than Yi Shiwen's, and he was even more lawless than Yi Shiwen's. It was true that a small temple was full of evil spirits, and all kinds of people had emerged. Many people were worried that it would affect the plan of the Allied forces to fight against the Tian clan. The bright moon and Yemo's feet kept colliding. It was like the collision of two terrifying celestial artifacts. Blazing light splashed in all directions. The aftermath of the collision contained the righteousness of the two. Natural laws were endless, falling from the sky like meteors falling from outer space. Damn it! At this moment, on the other side of the universe, a tall man stood up and was about to join the battle. Great Crimson King, I advise you not to casually join the battle. Let the two of them settle their battle. It's not suitable to join others. Suddenly, a lazy voice sounded. However, a handsome young man appeared and blocked his way. You are Yi Woody. The man was stunned for a moment, but he quickly recognized the young man. I didn't expect that even a famous 10 great kings like you would know me. I'm so honored, Yi Woody said with a cheeky smile on his face. The man in front of him was Great Crimson King, one of the 10 great kings. There were legends about him in many worlds. However, this person's origin was mysterious. In the myriad worlds, not many people knew about his roots. This was because he did not belong to any force. For a rogue cultivator to be able to cultivate to this level, he could be called the strongest rogue cultivator. You also want to stop me? No, you're actually a top king now. As far as I know, you shouldn't be a king yet. Could it be that you've obtained the inheritance in the Demon Emperor's bell? Great Crimson King suddenly thought of something, and his expression changed. Great Crimson King, you're really knowledgeable. Just based on my rapid growth and strength. You actually guessed it. Yi Woody said with a smile, I'm all so lucky. Recently, I've just opened the seal in the Demon Emperor's bell. Although my realm is still a bit behind. Do you want to try and see if I can suppress you? Yi Woody clenched his fists and said, right now, my whole body is surging with magic power, and I'm looking for a way to vent it. Yi Woody, don't be too proud. Although you're the master of the ancient heavenly court, you're not the Demon Emperor from back then. If you go against me, you won't have a good time either. Great Crimson King said coldly, others don't know your roots, but I do. Back then, the first wolf ancestor who created the world dominated an area in the prehistoric times. Later, he submitted to the heavenly court. You're his youngest son, right? Although a long time has passed, you can hide it from others, but you can't hide it from me. Tisk TSK, you really have some tricks up your sleeve. Yi Woody was exposed, but he was not angry. The more you act like this, the more I have the urge to subdue you. Not many people in the universe know your roots. Great Crimson King, you became a king the moment you appeared, and later, you even became one of the 10 great kings. What a great reputation. However, I know that you're from Great Crimson Sky, right? A tusset of fire became a big deal, and you dare to clamor in front of me. When I was roaming the world, I didn't even know where you were. Although you've been sealed to this world, you're only a king. It's too difficult to hide your roots from me. This time, Great Crimson King's expression truly changed. Ever since he appeared, he had left Great Crimson Sky and had never mentioned his origins to anyone. At that time, he was already in the king realm, and no one dared to investigate his roots or his origins. Thus, the title of the #1 wandering cultivator in the world had been worn for many years, and no one knew that he had a rather shocking inheritance. I'm not in the mood to deal with you right now. I just want to tell you, calm down. There are a lot of things that you can't get involved in. Right now, even if we both have something on each other, although my old man made countless enemies back then, not many of them survived. Besides, I have the Demon Emperor's bell to protect me, so I don't have to worry about protecting myself. But you're different. If people find out about your origins and roots, even if you're one of the 10 great kings, you'll be captured in minutes and interrogated for the whereabouts of Great Crimson Sky. That place has fallen for too long, and indeed, not many people have heard of it now. However, some old fellows are still there, and if they have any ideas, where can you hide in the heavens and on the earth? Yi Woody said with a chuckle. Be smart, don't be used as a tool by others. The Great Crimson King's face alternated between green and white. He didn't know what to say, but he knew that Yi Woody was right. So what if he exposed Yi Woody's origins? With the protection of the ancient heavenly court, his former enemies might not dare to cause trouble for him. However, if his identity was exposed, there was no place for him in the heavens and on the earth. However, he could also guess why Yi Woody wanted to get involved in this matter. There was no one in the heavens and earth who didn't know about the friendship between Yi Shiwen and Yi Woody. As Yi Shiwen also entered the king realm and killed the Devil Eagle King, in the eyes of everyone, Yi Shiwen indeed had the qualifications to be on equal footing with Yi Wudi. No one was considered to be trying to climb up the social ladder. I can stay out of this, but there are more than 1 or 2 people among the 10 great kings who are dissatisfied with Yi Shiwen. There are even some old fellows who are dissatisfied with him. Whether he survives or not is none of my business. You should know that the devil eagle old ancestor had many friends back then. Although he has fallen, his friends are still alive. The great Crimson King laughed coldly. They're just some old fellows who are struggling to survive. They are nothing. Give him a little more time, and no one will be able to do anything to him. Even I don't dare to underestimate his potential. Those old fellows are nothing. Yi Wudi waved his hand and said nonchalantly. Then he looked into the depths of the other universe and said, "The battle is about to end." On the other side of the battlefield, King Pure Moon was constantly being pushed back, coughing up blood. Yi Mo continued to chase after him. He didn't have any other tricks up his sleeves. He just kept stomping down on his opponent, as if he was trampling over the entire world. Everyone felt like the sky was falling and the earth was collapsing. The Pure Moon King spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body was sent flying, crashing into the Alliance's headquarters. He had been utterly defeated. He was no match for Yi Mo. Let's see if you still dare to humiliate me. You're courting death. A tyrannical smile appeared on Yi Mo's face. He was a demon, so his personality was quite tyrannical. It was just that he was suppressed by Yi Shiwen. He was just about to attack the Pure Moon King again when he heard a voice. Wait! His body stiffened, and he immediately stopped. Yi Mo, leave him to me. Yi Shiwen's figure slowly appeared. If anyone else said that, I would definitely break their head. But since it's you, I'll let you have him. Yi Mo said indifferently. The Pure Moon King's face turned red. This was an insult. Was he a commodity that was being treated like this? His eyes glared at Yi Shiwen as if they were about to spit fire. It seemed as if he wanted to tear him apart. How dare you come back? The Pure Moon King said coldly. Why wouldn't I come back? I'm not the one in the wrong. I just heard that you were going to punish me. Yi Shiwen said with a sneer. So what? Even though I'm injured right now, I'm still enough to suppress you. The Pure Moon King said coldly. I don't want people to say that I took advantage of a cripple. I'll give you time to recover, and I'll suppress you in 10 years. Let's see who will say anything then. Chapter 2707. King Pure Moon was trembling with anger. Had he really fallen to such a state? Yi Mo might have been rude, but his strength was enough to make people speechless. Even the most picky person wouldn't be able to find fault with Yi Mo's performance in today's battle. He had used his own strength to suppress King Pure Moon and dominate the world. His strength was unimaginable. Yi Shiwen, on the other hand, dared to act arrogantly in front of him. He was just a junior. So what if he defeated the Demon Eagle King? The Demon Eagle King's strength was worlds apart from his. They weren't even on the same level. The Pure Moon King became even more depressed when he thought of this. He wanted to spit out blood again. Golden blood sprayed out like stars. It was extremely dazzling. All right, I'll wait for you in 10 years. Let's see how you'll suppress me. The Pure Moon King's eyes flashed, but he knew that his body wasn't in the best condition to fight. Yi Shiwen was extremely cunning and had many tricks up his sleeves. If he fought with his injured body, he might actually fail miserably. He didn't persist any longer when he thought of this. It was only 10 years. It would be a blink of an eye, but it would be enough for him to recover from his injuries. If Yi Shiwen wants to suppress you, I won't interfere. I just want to tell you that you shouldn't meddle in some things. There are some people you can't afford to offend. If you do something wrong, you'll have to pay the price. Yi Mo sneered and said loudly in front of everyone in the Alliance headquarters. King Pure Moon spat out another mouthful of blood when he heard that. That was what Yi Mo had said when he tore up the letter that Yi Mo had sent him. He had meant that he was the one who shouldn't be offended, but who would have thought that he would be taught a harsh lesson by Yi Mo? Why did it sound so ironic when he heard those words again? It was as if someone was slapping him in the face. Many people in the Alliance headquarters knew about this, so they all looked at each other. They didn't know what to say. There was nothing more humiliating than this. Yi Mo was right. He only had one goal today, and that was to slap the Pure Moon King's face. He slapped the Pure Moon King's face, not giving him any face at all. Yi Shiwen stood with his hand behind his back and looked in the direction of the Alliance headquarters. Everyone is here now. Let's see how I'll suppress him in 10 years. My thinking is simple. I'll suppress whoever wants to suppress me. If anyone dares to piss me off, I'll teach them a lesson. There was a hidden threat in Yi Shiwen's words, and everyone felt a chill run down their spines. Not only because of Yi Shiwen's current strength, but more importantly, because Yi Shiwen's character was too fierce. What did he mean by, whoever wants to suppress me, I'll suppress them? Words like that had to be taken into consideration. His opponent was King Pure Moon, one of the 10 great kings, yet he didn't show any fear at all. The fact that he could say something like that showed that he was extraordinarily arrogant. In particular, everyone knew very well that there were many people in the Alliance headquarters who were dissatisfied with Yi Shiwen. There were even more people who wanted to cause trouble for him. He was warning some people, and his method of warning was to use Pure Moon King to establish his prestige. Many people felt that this wasn't right. Most people would kill the chicken to warn the monkey, but he killed the monkey to warn the chickens. He didn't play by the rules. He was a freak. However, there were also many people who felt that Yi Shiwen was a lawless and out-of-control person. He didn't play his cards according to common sense. And that was the reason why he had been able to reach where he was today. However, many people were curious about where Yi Shiwen got his confidence from. He felt that he could suppress one of the 10 great kings. That wasn't an ordinary king. The Devil Eagle King was nothing compared to the Pure Moon King. Although the Pure Moon King was beaten by Yi Mo, that was only because Yi Mo himself was beaten. Yi Shiwen might be able to reach the same level in the future, but he was still far from it now. The Pure Moon King trembled with anger. The more Yi Shiwen didn't care about him, the angrier he became. After announcing the War of the 10 Years, Yi Shiwen and Yi Mo disappeared. They didn't return to the Alliance headquarters. Instead, they left. No one knew where they went. In an ancient garden, countless celestial birds and spiritual beasts were living leisurely in the garden. It was like a paradise in the human world. In a pavilion in the garden, 3 figures were sitting opposite each other. It was Yi Shiwen, Yi Mo, and Yi Wudi. I didn't expect the ancient heavenly court to have such a beautiful garden, even though it's said to be in decline, Yi Shiwen said in surprise. They were currently in the ruins of the ancient heavenly court. Although Yi Wudi had been constantly repairing the ruins over the years, compared to the huge buildings, it could only be considered a ruin. Not even 1% of it had been repaired. The current strength of the ancient heavenly court was far from its heyday. If it wasn't for the protection of the loyal tribes, even the ruins would have been emptied. That battle was too tragic. Yi Shiwen remembered the scene on the southern heavenly gate steel on the Demon Island. The Demon Emperor fought against the heavens and asked for punishment. It was really shocking. What's so strange about that? During the heyday of the ancient heavenly court, there were at least 800 of these ordinary gardens. The most precious one was the Wanjin Garden. It was said to contain all the rare treasures in the world. I went to see it once when I was young. I couldn't forget it after that. Unfortunately, the Wanjin Garden was destroyed and can't be rebuilt. Yi Wudi sighed. It was a pity for him, a very big one. I didn't expect to see you again after thousands of years. Yi Shiwen slightly sighed. He still couldn't adapt to this. Hundreds or thousands of years had passed. Countless years had passed. The people he had once known had also passed away. You will get used to it in the future. It's nothing, Yi Mo said after drinking a cup of wine. It feels good to have a physical body. Ha, after so many years, even you have a physical body. Yi Shiwen is really willing to let you go. Without your plan, the power of the Tianyuan mirror would have been reduced by several levels. Yi Wudi glanced at Yi Mo and said. He naturally knew Yi Mo's identity. Yi Mo smiled mischievously. He was touched in his heart. If it had been someone else, they wouldn't have done their best to help him reincarnate and enter the divine shell of the Lord of Darkness like Yi Shiwen. It's just a small matter. It's all because of you. How did you enter the peak divine king realm? You're even faster than me. Yi Shiwen was a little surprised. It's all because of the current situation. Those idiots let the opportunity to achieve Dao fall into the hands of the Heaven Clan. How can I not be anxious? If I'm not careful, I might die tragically. The Heaven Clan is tough. How can they allow others to interfere? Yi Wudi said, that's why I took the risk and tried to unlock the seal in the Demon Emperor Bell. There's a part of the Demon Emperor's inheritance inside. I almost died in there. It wasn't easy to pass the trial. When I came out alive, I heard about you. Do you have to be so monstrous? I have the inheritance of the Demon Emperor. Why do I feel that I might not be your opponent if we fight? Yi Wudi had a depressed look on his face. He had only briefly mentioned the dangers of accepting the Demon Emperor's inheritance. However, Yi Shiwen could understand some of it. After all, Man Yun had died in order to accept the trial road left behind by the Azura Demon King. Not everyone could have that kind of luck and walk all the way to the end. Some inheritances could indeed allow a person's cultivation to have a great breakthrough in a short period of time. However, they had to exchange their lives for it. Yi Shiwen's cultivation had skyrocketed again and again because he had risked his life. He had even gone deep into the Heaven Clan's lair and risked his life in exchange for his cultivation. Outsiders could not see their hardships. They only thought that they had been lucky enough to have their cultivation skyrocket. That's a must. Yi Shiwen laughed out loud. But you have a lot of hidden dangers. Yes, that's right. There's no such thing as a free lunch in this world. The hidden dangers are huge. Although I barely survived, it has affected my foundation. I will need to use a secret method to refine this part of the inheritance for a long time. However, there's no other way. If I don't do this, when the matter of the Heaven Clan erupts, I can only be a bystander. That's not the purpose of my father sealing me in this world. Since I'm already born, I will let the heavens know my name, Yi Wudi said helplessly. They were too young, including Yi Wudi, who had been sealed in this world. Their accumulation was too shallow. If they wanted to compete with those old monsters, they had to use some extreme methods. However, most people felt helpless, because there was no such extreme method. At least Yi Shiwen and Yi Wudi had such methods. I'm fine. If I hide in the ancient heavenly court, who would dare to cause trouble for me? But it's your problem. Are you sure you can defeat Pure Moon King in 10 years? That old guy is very powerful. Don't think that Yi Mo can bully him. He's not someone ordinary people can deal with. Yi Wudi looked at Yi Shiwen. He was also curious about Yi Shiwen's trump card. Yi Shiwen was so confident. Haha, I'm not 100% sure. Maybe 10%. Give me a few hundred years, and I'll be 100% sure. But in these 10 years, I'm really only 10% sure. But I'm using this to put pressure on myself. Only under pressure will I be able to break through. Yi Shiwen laughed loudly. Yi Wudi looked at Yi Shiwen seriously, then slowly let out a breath and said, Madman, you're a madman. Chapter 2708. Lunatic, you're a lunatic. Ha! If you're not a lunatic, you can't achieve Tao. Yi Shiwen laughed and said, I won't be able to suppress King Pure Moon in 10 years. At most, my reputation will be tarnished. However, you're accepting the Demon King's inheritance. If you're not careful, you might die. Tell me, who's the lunatic here? You're right. Lunatic, lunatic. Let's all go crazy. This world is too crazy. There's no way for normal people to survive. Yi Wudi nodded seriously, obviously agreeing with this lunatic. In this great world, ordinary people would not be able to survive. Only the craziest people would be able to make it to the end. Any top-notch king-rank martial artist would have an obsession in their heart. Their Tao was extremely strong. If they could persist to the point of obsession, they would be no different from ordinary lunatics. Then, Yi Shiwen asked about Yi Mo's experiences over the years. He could only vaguely sense that Yi Mo should be fine. However, he did not know what Yi Mo had been doing all these years. What else could I be doing? I've been hiding. Yi Mo poured himself a drink and said, I've been paying attention to your affairs. I just didn't interfere. If it weren't for the fact that some old fellows went overboard this time, I wouldn't have intervened. You're different from me. Your path is broader than mine. This path is destined to be lonely. No one can accompany you, and no one can help you out. You can only rely on your own strength. I see. A bitter smile appeared on Yi Shiwen's face. He didn't think that there was anything wrong with Yi Mo's behavior. It was just that in Yi Mo's eyes, the things that he had suffered in the past could only be regarded as tempering. It couldn't be regarded as any danger at all. Standing at a different height, one's thinking would naturally be different. You've performed very well. You've lived up to my expectations. After all, you're the successor of the Demon King that I chose. If your performance was bad, wouldn't it mean that I was blind? Yi Mo laughed and said, "Do you two know where the rebellious emperor is?" Yishuan asked. He was most worried about those in the alliance who were unhappy with him. It was impossible for them to kill him. He was not that weak. It was just that the rebellious emperor kept making him uneasy. His eyelids kept twitching. This person himself was a great hidden danger. If he was allowed to grow, it would be a disaster for all the races. No, I've been looking for his whereabouts all these years. I've even used several flags that the ancient Heavenly Court buried in the Heavenly Clan a long time ago. However, there was no news about this. I only heard vaguely that the rebellious emperor might be protected by several dynasties of the Heavenly Court. Dynasty lords should know. Yiwudi shook his head and became serious. In the past few years, I've spent quite a bit of time in the Tian clan. Although their dynasty is very secretive, I still know some of its whereabouts, but I have not been able to find the whereabouts of the DNI. I can only vaguely see some things from the Qi gazing technique. In the past few years, the luck of the Tian clan has become stronger and stronger, and for a remnant to have such shocking luck, it can be considered shocking. It seems like the DNI cannot be reversed, said Yi Mo. I'm afraid that all the experts in the heavenly realm have taken action. No one wants the heavenly clan to be above everyone again. That kind of life is simply a disaster. There are many people in this world who know about the rebellious emperor. Many people should have seen it. That's why they are so anxious to eliminate the heavenly clan, said Yi Mo. Yishuan nodded. Although he didn't know how to look at the rebellious emperor's qi, he naturally knew some things about rebellious emperor. He learned it without a teacher, or it could be said that he learned it by analogy. For a person, the result of a strong, rebellious emperor was that he might be tripped by a divine artifact when he went out. Anything he ate would be a treasure. For a race, the most direct manifestation of a strong, rebellious emperor's qi was that there were many experts in the race. Many bottlenecks that might have blocked them could no longer block them. There were also more and more babies in the race. Geniuses and geniuses appeared. This was a process of decline and decline because rebellious emperor's Tao was fixed. If there were more people, then there would be fewer people left. It was obvious that there was no other possibility besides the fact that DNI himself was about to attain the Tao that had brought up the fate of the Heavenly Clan's remnants. Yes, there is no other choice. As long as the Heavenly Clan still wants to rule the Heavenly Realm, then we have no other choice. Yishuan sighed. Don't mention such unlucky things. How is Yi Qianqian now? Asked Emo. Yishuan said, she should be fine now. She should be able to wake up in the near future. He didn't have much confidence in Yi Qianqian's situation. Yi Qianqian's functions had almost recovered on the surface, but the deep recovery of her spirit was still in progress. Most importantly, Yi Qianqian seemed to be crazily absorbing the power of the Death Lord. Once she was born, she would probably be another Death Lord. However, for him it was naturally a good thing. No matter what, the Death Lord was dead. Yi Qianqian was only Yi Qianqian. Yishuan was also very puzzled about these things. However, now that something big was about to happen, he didn't have time to pay attention to this matter. Everyone dispersed after gathering for a few more days. Yiwudi had to go back and digest the inheritance he had obtained from the Demon Emperor. Yimo also had to continue tracking the whereabouts of the rebellious emperor. Yi Shiwen, on the other hand, had to start preparing for the great battle 10 years later. He and Yiwudi didn't exaggerate at all. There was only a 10% chance. It sounded a little crazy, but for him, it wasn't hopeless. Everything depended on the ancestral dragon Daos diagram. That diagram was also a treasure within the Dragon Clan. It had been used during the Dragon Clan's most dangerous time to repel a powerful enemy. It should be said that it was not repelled, but scared away. That person didn't even dare to attack and retreated. With the strength of the Dragon Island, it meant that someone who dared to cause trouble for the Dragon Island was extraordinary in itself. However, they were scared away by the ancestral Dragon Daos diagram. This in itself was very mysterious. This was because, according to the information he had found, the ancestral dragon's illustration of the Tao had always been shrouded in a mysterious veil. The ancestral dragon attained Tao very early, and he might have been one of the earliest to do so. Although the illustration of the ancestral dragon's illustration of the Tao was not personally created by him, it might have his own imprint of the Great Path. Since ancient times, most of the imperial emperors who had attained the Tao had once watched and comprehended the ancestral dragon's Tao sermon before or after they attained the Tao. This was a very interesting phenomenon. Even after the Qin emperor was besieged by the Dragon Island, he wanted to comprehend the ancestral Dragon Daos diagram as compensation. That was why Yi Shiwen made such a request. Although it was only a short 10 years, he believed that it was enough to solve a lot of problems. Whether he could defeat the Pure Moon King in 10 years' time would depend on what he gained in the next 10 years. After parting ways with Yi Wudi and Yi Mo, Yi Shiwen went directly to the Dragon Island. At this time, the entire Dragon Island held a very grand banquet because of Yi Shiwen's arrival. They wanted to rope Yi Shiwen in, but at the same time, they also wanted to subtly express that they wanted to lower their heads. There were very few people who could be so valued by the Dragon Island since ancient times. After some toasting, Yi Shiwen finally obtained permission to comprehend the ancestral Dragon Daos diagram. The ancestral Dragon Daos diagram was also a very precious treasure on the Dragon Island. Therefore, it was stored in the depths of the Dragon Island behind countless spaces. Yi Shiwen followed the Black Dragon Elder all the way inside. At this time, there were many experts of the Dragon Clan who had received the news. They were all watching from the side of the road, as if they were looking at the most novel creature. It was very strange. However, many of them looked unfriendly. Obviously, they knew that Yi Shiwen had forced the Dragon Island to lower their heads. For the many arrogant Dragon Clan, this was a kind of humiliation. However, they had no choice but to let Yi Shiwen comprehend the ancestral Dragon Daos diagram. Many prodigies were indignant. Along the way, Yi Shiwen could feel the unfriendly gazes of these Dragon Clan prodigies. He smiled in his heart and didn't think much of it. Whether these people were friendly or not, it didn't matter to him. They were just some ants that he could kill with one hand. However, as he went deeper, he realized that more and more powerful gazes were staring at him. Among them, there were many king-ranked realm experts. They were even unscrupulously sizing up his body as if they wanted to see through him. Countless gazes made one shudder even from afar. Yi Shiwen suddenly understood these people's intentions. They wanted to show their strength to Yi Shiwen. Although the Dragon Island had lowered their heads, they definitely wouldn't let it go. It was reasonable for them to show their strength to Yi Shiwen. They wanted him to understand how unfathomable the Dragon Island's strength was. They weren't afraid of him. They just didn't want to pay a huge price to deal with him. However, even if they didn't say it, Yi Shiwen wouldn't underestimate the Dragon Island. Since ancient times, there had been many powerful people. However, they had all disappeared. Yet the Dragon Island still existed. This in itself explained the problem. Seeing Yi Shiwen's figure gradually disappear into the countless spaces, a figure slowly appeared. This figure clenched his fists and stared in Yi Shiwen's direction. Yi Shiwen would have immediately recognized this person if he were here. This person was the famous genius of the Dragon Island. Ao Chaozong had once competed with him for supremacy. However, he could only watch Yi Shiwen pass by from afar now. He couldn't do anything even though he was suppressing the Dragon Island. Are you feeling discouraged? An old voice traveled to Ao Chaozong's ears. Chapter 2709. Great Ancestor. Ao Chaozong didn't turn around, but he knew who it was. It was the great ancestor of his bloodline. The Dragon Clan was divided into many branches. First of all, there were the Pureblood Dragon Clan and the subspecies. Then, the Pureblood and the subspecies were further divided into many branches according to their different bloodlines. On the Dragon Island, The ones who truly occupied the dominant position were naturally the purebred dragons. As for the subspecies of dragons, they could only be regarded as servants. There was no way for them to compare with the purebred dragons in terms of status. If the subspecies wanted to get rid of such a fate, they could only try their best to purify their bloodline and turn from a subspecies into a pureblood. Only then would they have a real way out. Even if it was a powerful subspecies, there was no way to compare with the purebred dragon race. Within the purebred dragon race, there were many different races. The dragon race had 9 sons, and each of their sons was different. Their descendants were also completely different. That was why the dragon race was so diverse. It was as if a single race could evolve into a world. Ao Chaozong himself belonged to the Golden Dragon tribe, which was the noblest bloodline of the dragon tribe. It was unknown when the dragon tribe's patriarch had become the Golden Dragon tribe's patriarch. As time passed, the status of the Golden Dragon tribe became extraordinary. It was even comparable to the ancient Phoenix realm's heavenly Phoenix bloodline. Moreover, among the current generation of experts of the Golden Dragon tribe, no, even among the entire dragon tribe, he was unique. No one could be mentioned in the same breath as him and compete with him. In fact, he was confident that he would not lose to anyone in the myriad heavens and realms. Only Yi Shiwen had left him far behind and shattered his pride. It had only been a few years, but the person who had been defeated by him and could barely match up to his clone had grown to a point where he had to look up to him. While he was unwilling to admit it, he had to admit that the current Yi Shiwen was indeed not on the same level as him. He had only reached the peak of the Sage realm after much effort. But even so, he was only comparable to the great geniuses of the Golden Dragon clan since ancient times. In the current era, he was naturally extremely dazzling. However, in the long river of history, compared to the geniuses in the entire history of the Golden Dragon tribe, he could only be considered not too outstanding. But even so, it was shocking enough. Among those of the same generation, there were only about 10 people who had reached such a level. Compared to historical prodigies, Ao Chaozong did not seem to be too outstanding. That was not because he was incapable, but because the Golden Dragon tribe was simply too powerful. Perhaps even the Golden Dragon tribe themselves did not know how many prodigies they had produced in history. And among these prodigies, Ao Chaozong could be ranked above average. Such a talent was something that even the most picky people could not help but praise. Originally, he had felt a little complacent because of these things. He had thought that the heroes of the world were just SOSO. However, since the beginning of the confrontation with Yi Shiwen, he had suffered losses every time. Not even once had he gained an advantage. First, his clone had been destroyed by Yi Shiwen. Later, even his original body had been defeated by Yi Shiwen. Furthermore, it could be said that Yi Shiwen had been completely defeated. They were not on the same level at all. To him, this was an unparalleled blow. He had been training in seclusion for many years so that he could catch up to Yi Shiwen's pace. Now that he had reached the peak of the Sage realm, he was no worse than those ancient prodigies. His next step was to enter the Tidal King realm. He had thought that he would catch up to Yi Shiwen, and he should not be far behind. Who would have thought that he would receive yet another piece of unprecedented news? Yi Shiwen had proven his way and become a titled king, and he had even killed the demonic Eagle King, whom he could only look up to and could not do anything about. At this point, the outside world had stopped commenting. There was no need to say anything more about Yi Shiwen. The strength of this invincible king had made everyone shudder and retreat. His opponents had already climbed to the level of Monarch Clear Moon, who was one of the 10 great monarchs. Ordinary monarchs were nothing in front of him. As for himself, who was originally mentioned in the same breath as Yi Shiwen, no one paid any attention to him anymore. No one would put him and Yi Shiwen side by side anymore. In other words, everyone felt that he was no longer qualified to stand together with Yi Shiwen at this time. Although this had become a reality, such a situation still made him feel sullen and humiliated. Not to mention surpassing him. He did not even have the qualifications to be compared to him. He felt extremely indignant when he thought of this. Are you already feeling disheartened? That old voice was heard. An elder walked out slowly and looked at Ao Chaozong. A little. Ao Chaozong let out a wry smile and did not try to hide it. He heard the comments of many Dragon Clan experts. How dare he? This Yishuan really has the guts of a leopard. He dares to come to Dragon Island alone. That's right. I thought he would bring someone with him. That Yemo, right? I didn't expect him to come alone. I really don't know if he's brave or if he's out of his mind. Haha, coming alone. I've only heard of it before, but never seen it. Now I've seen it for myself. But he is indeed amazing. He is not afraid of our gaze. He is indeed courageous. Such a person is the enemy of our Dragon Island. There will be a lot of trouble in the future. Fortunately, although we can't say that we have buried the hatchet this time, we can say that we have put the past behind us. Otherwise, we will be in big trouble when he advances further in the future. Since we know that he will be in big trouble, why don't we go all out to take him down? Now that he is here, do you think we can let him turn the sky upside down? A genius of the Dragon Clan said indignantly. You guys didn't see him kill the Devil Eagle King with your own eyes. Thinking back to that battle, I still feel a bit scared. If we really let him fight here, how many people from our Dragon Island would have to die to kill him? That's right. Moreover, he is not the biggest trouble. The Hidden Valley won't let this matter go if we kill him. They are not as good as us, but they won't be easily humiliated. The most important thing is that Devil Yemo. We don't know where he comes from, but his fighting strength is comparable to the Patriarch's. So, we will be in big trouble. Even the proud and arrogant Dragon Clan experts seem to be convinced by Yishuan. At least in their opinion, Yishuan was indeed a character. There is nothing to be discouraged about. The elder said slowly, "You've done well enough. Over the years, you've been one of the most outstanding members of our Golden Dragon Clan. It's just that there is no way to compare with him, isn't there?" Ao Chaozong raised the corner of his mouth slightly, and a trace of bitterness appeared on his lips. He never felt that he was inferior to anyone. He only lacked time. As long as he had enough time, he had the confidence to compete with anyone. However, his own confidence was shaken when he was on Yishuan's side. It was not that he didn't have the confidence to defeat the Devil Eagle King, but it might take tens of thousands of years for that to happen. However, Yishuan had already done it. Moreover, it was said that the Devil Eagle King didn't even have the strength to fight back. 10 years later, he would challenge one of the 10 major kings, the Pure Moon King. This made him feel a deep sense of defeat, a sense of defeat that he had never felt before. If the speed of his cultivation was like driving a super sports car, then Yishuan was like riding a rocket. Although there was a short period of time, Yishuan had left everyone behind with an astonishing speed after that. Even the taillights could not be seen. This was like 2 ruthless slaps to his face. He may have been born with great luck. The world is going to be in chaos, and such people will emerge one after another. As the saying goes, there must be a demon when something abnormal happens. Such a person may be born at the right time, the old man said slowly. Apart from this, I have no other explanation. Our Dragon Island has stood in the world for countless years. We have seen too many people like this. The more chaotic the world is, the more likely such people will appear. On the other hand, the more powerful such people are, the more it proves that the world is going to be in chaos. Ao Chaozong was a little stunned because he didn't know about these things. There was such a saying, a person born at the right time? Was there really such a person? It was not that he had never seen a generation's pride, but none of them were as strong as Yishuan. Otherwise, why do you think our Dragon Island bowed to him? Is it really because of his current strength? It's not that our Dragon Island can't kill him, but it's just that the price is a little higher. The real problem is that we are also afraid of the backlash. This kind of person is born at the right time, and he is almost all the essence of the world. He also carries the fate of the world, and is related to the great calamity. If we want to kill him by force, we will suffer the backlash of the heavens, and the consequences will be disastrous. The last time such a person appeared was many years ago, during the era of Emperor Qin. The old man continued, "In order to kill Emperor Qin, we have paid a heavy price. Even now, we have only recovered to the glory of that time. How can we do the same stupid thing twice?" "What? Emperor Qin? Old ancestor, are you saying that he can achieve Tao?" Ao Chaozong said with a face full of surprise. He didn't dare to believe it. Although they all had the goal of achieving Tao, that goal was too vague, so small that it was almost impossible to achieve. It was just a vision to motivate them to move forward. Achieve Tao? Humph! The old man snorted coldly. Wait until he survives. Chapter 27:10. Enlightenment? Humph. The old man snorted. We'll talk about it after he survives. 99% of such people will die. They are born with great destiny. Similarly, they will gather the resentment of the world. The great calamity will inevitably be accompanied by the destruction of countless living beings. Do you think anyone can withstand the accumulation of these resentments? The old man sneered. Since ancient times, only 1 out of 1,000 people has been able to succeed. Even if they are in the limelight for a while, they will only end up turning into ashes. If such a person succeeds, we have barely turned the page. However, if he fails and turns into ashes, what can he do even if he understands the ancestral dragon's Tao discourse picture? The Dragon Island's plan was undoubtedly very smooth. They would not be at a disadvantage no matter what. Naturally, they had their own ideas. At this time, Yi Shiwen had already followed the Black Dragon Elder all the way into an extremely deep space. It was a sunny mountain forest. This mountain forest actually occupied the entire small space. It was conceivable how important this place was to the entire Dragon Island. The moment he entered, Yi Shiwen felt the divine senses of several king-ranked realm masters sweeping over. After stopping on him for a while, they shifted their gazes away. After entering the mountain forest, there was a huge valley. On one side of the valley was a cliff. The entire cliff was extremely smooth, and there was a picture engraved on it. If it wasn't the ancestral dragon's Tao discourse picture, what else could it be? This is the ancestral dragon's Tao diagram. It was originally a tablet, but it slowly developed into a cliff like this. It has been many years since it last appeared. The Black Dragon Elder gave Yi Shiwen a little explanation and said. Yi Shiwen nodded. So that was it. He separated a trace of his divine senses to explore it. Suddenly, it felt like a clay ox entering the sea, and it quickly disappeared without a trace. This ancestral dragon's Tao discourse picture was indeed extraordinary. If that's the case, I won't disturb you anymore. I can't stay here for long. I will pick you up in 10 years. The Black Dragon Elder paused and said. Then he turned around and left. Yi Shiwen naturally did not think that the Dragon Island would let him casually comprehend inside. There must be some means to monitor this place. However, he did not care. As long as he was not disturbed, it would be fine. The promise of 10 years is up to you. Yi Shiwen smiled faintly. Then, he sat cross-legged on a praying mat in front of the ancestral dragon Tao discourse diagram. However, this praying mat was also a divine tool. It had the effect of calming one's mind. Obviously, it was also used to assist in comprehending the ancestral dragon Tao discourse diagram. Yi Shiwen calmed his heart and stared at the ancestral dragon's picture. He saw that the image of the ancestral dragon was looming on the whole picture. It was as high as the sky. The clouds could only linger around him, slightly covering his huge body. The 9-clawed golden dragon was a characteristic of the ancestral dragon. As everyone knew, the golden dragon race only had 5 claws. This was the pure-blooded dragon race. The subspecies were secondary. Some subspecies were like the flood dragons. They looked very similar to the dragon race. Using the number of claws to judge was also an excellent method. Vaguely, his gaze seemed to penetrate the entire stone wall and see the world behind the painting. The ancestral Gragon opened his bloody mouth as if he was narrating something. Yi Shiwen seemed to hear something, but at the same time, he didn't seem to hear anything. As the saying goes, the Tao can be told, but it is not the ordinary Tao. The Tao has no state and cannot be described. Yi Shiwen only felt as if there was a call that was pulling him. Suddenly, a door appeared in front of him. He stood up involuntarily and pushed this door open. In an instant, the environment in front of him changed into another environment. It was no longer the original mountain forest. On the contrary, it was a special space. In this space, there was also the appearance of a rugged, immortal mountain. From afar, he could feel the powerful dragon aura boiling. In the sky, a huge mountain-like dragon god flew across the sky and flew to the center of the entire space. This scene was very similar to the scene depicted on the Ancestral Dragon Tao Discourse Diagram. The Ancestral Dragon Tao Discourse Diagram. Is this the Ancestral Dragon Tao Discourse Diagram? Yi Shiwen's heart moved. He hurriedly rushed into the distance, towards the largest mountain range in the depths of the space. His speed was extremely fast, like the wind and lightning. Soon, he arrived at the foot of this mountain range. The entire mountain range was shrouded in great majesty. Only a small part of the mountain range did not have such great majesty and pressure that people could land on. The place where he landed was a mountain entrance. The mountain road was rugged, but there was a white jade staircase that went straight up to the center of the mountain. At the foot of the mountain, there were already a lot of people gathered at the entrance of the mountain. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but suck in a mouthful of cold air. Among the dozens of figures present on the scene, any one of them made him feel inexplicable fear and trepidation. This was an indescribable feeling. You outsiders are not qualified to listen to the Ancestral Dragon's discourse. If you know what's good for you, hurry up and get lost. Among these people, a big man sat at the mountain entrance, blocking everyone's way forward. I thought I was arrogant enough. I didn't expect you to be even more arrogant than me. TSK, TSK. A handsome young man with a somewhat gloomy face grinned. He stood up and said, "No one in the world can stop me from going where I want to go. No one in the world can stop me. You think too highly of yourself." The big man glanced at the handsome young man with a cold face and said coldly, "I think too highly of myself. Ha! In the world, if I don't think highly of myself, no one is worthy of my attention. You are the second son of the Ancestral Dragon, Yi." The handsome young man with a cold face sneered and said, "Since you know my name, why don't you go away?" The big man, Yi, revealed a cruel and bloodthirsty face. Although today is the day of the Ancestral Dragon's discourse, it doesn't mean that my sword can't kill people. I understand that you are a predecessor and don't know my name, but if you don't give way today, I think I will have to slay the dragon." The handsome young man said coldly, "Who the hell are you? You dare to act violently in our place. Be careful. I will swallow you in one gulp." Another rough voice sounded. A ferocious beast with the appearance of a lion and the claws of a dragon descended from the sky. 5 sons of the Ancestral Dragon, Swan and I. It seems that the Ancestral Dragon has given birth to 9 sons today. Just nice. I also want to see how different the sons of the Ancestral Dragon are. The handsome young man saw the approaching ferocious beast, but he was not afraid at all. Instead, he was a little excited. "Friend, tell me your name. You have such strength, so you are certainly not an ordinary person." Another rumbling sound sounded. A dragon head stretched out from the clouds and said, "This person was the head of the 9 sons of the Ancestral Dragon, Chionyo." "Ha! You asked me who I am. I am Koen Peng." The handsome young man laughed and said. Everyone was indifferent. Only Yi Shiwen's expression revealed a bit of shock. No wonder he felt a bit familiar from his body. It turned out that he was a relative of that little guy. No, this aura, could it be the first-generation Koen Peng, the guy known as the Demon Master? If that was the case, then it would be really terrifying. A person of that level could dominate the world. But it didn't seem right. He didn't have such a tyrannical aura. If the Demon Master Koen Peng came in person, then he would only need to reveal a little bit of his aura to suppress everyone. "You want to challenge the 9 of us?" Chionyo glanced at Koen Peng and said, "Yes, I want to challenge the 9 of you. The Ancestral Dragon has given birth to 9 sons. Each son is different, but each of them has great magical power. Unfortunately, I was born at the wrong time. I have long wanted to fight with you." Koen Peng nodded. The excitement on his face didn't diminish. "Arrogant." Swan and I grinned. He was very strong, and he was never afraid of his opponents. At the same time, as the son of the Ancestral Dragon, he was cruel and bloodthirsty. He fought for the dragon race and killed countless opponents. "Wait a minute. You are the Demon Master Koen Peng? I didn't expect to fight with you here. Haha, this is great." An extremely ugly male demon jumped out and stood in front of Kuan-pung. "Who are you?" Kuan-pung was quite unhappy that someone suddenly stood in front of him. "Demon Master? That's a good title. I will be called Demon Master from now on." "Ah! You have memorized my name. I am Azura." The male demon was not the least bit afraid of the fierce Kuan-pung. Yi Shiwen's brain went blank. What's going on? That Kuan-pung alone is enough. But this man of devil race, is he the first ancestor of Azura clan, Azura Devil King? What the hell was this place? Yi Shiwen looked around. Amongst these people, Kuan-pung and Azura were outstanding and powerful. There were about 10 people who were similar to them. The rest of the people were slightly weaker than them. However, any one of them was stronger than any outstanding person that he had ever seen in his life. Yi Shiwen wasn't sure if all of them were famous figures in history, but when he saw a silhouette, he suddenly recognized it. It was the Demon Emperor. Yes, it was the Demon King. It was just that this was a young Demon King. His aura was far inferior to the powerful Demon King that Yi Shiwen had seen later. But his aura had already taken shape and was showing off his abilities. In this way, he was able to confirm that Azura was probably the formidable Imperial Emperor who created the 6 paths of reincarnation fist in history. Thinking of this, even if these people were not on the same level as Azura, they were only a step away. Who were these people? They were so terrifying. What kind of place was this? Why were there so many experts gathered here at the same time to listen to the ancestral dragons preaching? Yi Shiwen was more and more confused. Chapter 27:11. Yi Shiwen looked around and saw that there were many people there. Each of them had a frightening aura on their bodies. Perhaps they could turn the world upside down if they were to go out. Simply put, they weren't ordinary people. In fact, any one of them could be regarded as a matchless character. The Heaven's Pride experts who had been accumulating power in the Kurfürst Road for countless generations seemed so young and tender in front of them. Azura, I, Lucifer, am in charge of the Ark of Heaven. I can ferry people to heaven. I've heard that you have a set of 6 paths of reincarnation fist. It can send people into reincarnation. It has immeasurable merits and virtues. I also want to see it. An extremely handsome man with a pair of huge wings behind him stepped forward and said. His entire body was flickering with golden light. He was clad in a magnificent robe. Lucifer. Is he the ancestor of the fallen angel clan, Lucifer? The first fallen angel in the world? This thought suddenly emerged in Yi Shiwen's mind. It was rumored that Lucifer was originally an angel of heaven. However, he had fallen into the devil world and had taken the ark with him. He had become the 8th royal family of the devil world by virtue of this. It was said that he had gone into closed-door training a long time ago. Some people said that he had already passed away. However, some people also said that he was still in closed-door training. Nobody knew about this. However, he also knew that Lucifer and Yi Mo's original master were very close and could be said to be extremely good friends. With the Demon King's temper and arrogance, if he was not an outstanding talent, how could he possibly take a look at him, let alone treat him as a friend? However, Lucifer didn't look like a fallen angel at present. He looked like a very normal angel. He didn't have the kind of fallen aura that a fallen angel possessed. Lucifer? I seem to have heard of it somewhere. But it doesn't matter. Don't blame me for being impolite if a birdman like you dares to disturb me. Go, go, go. Let's go out and fight. Azura said. Then his figure disappeared into the horizon. A magic matrix pattern appeared under Lucifer's feet. Then his figure also disappeared into the void and chased after Azura. Does anyone else want to fight with me besides this ugly guy? Kuan-pung glanced at everyone and said, Kuan-pung, let me be your opponent. At this moment, the Demon Emperor stepped out from the crowd and released a powerful aura from his body. The entire space was filled with this terrifying energy. The expressions of Chionyo and the others immediately changed. This power was too terrifying. There was actually someone in this world who could possess such terrifying power. Good, you can be considered an opponent. Just nice, you can fight with me. The Kuan-pung let out a long roar and transformed into the Kuan-pung true body, flying towards the stars in the sky. A bell rang from the demon emperor's body. As the ripples spread, his figure gradually disappeared in front of everyone. This is so exciting. Usually, I can't find an opponent, but I didn't expect to meet so many here. I'm called Qin Fong. Who wants to fight with me? A green-robed man flew through the air, stepping on a green lotus and holding a long sword in his hand. His entire body was golden, and a strong battle intent was released from his body. I'll be your opponent. Suddenly, a man from the original demon clan came out from the crowd and charged at the green-robed man. The two of them fought all the way to the cosmos. Soon, Qin Fong's figure appeared. Still not enough, who else? Come with me? I'll go. Several figures rushed out at the same time, bursting out a unique aura that shook the world. The rest of the people were not willing to be outdone. They actually used this place as a place to show off their strength, or it could be said that it was a rare opponent. They directly entered the cosmos. Although it was terrifying, the aftermath of the battle was eliminated by a mysterious force. No matter how they fought, the whole world would not collapse. After a while, Yi Shiwen was the only one left in the room. Yi Shiwen sat down cross-legged. It was a little strange. Usually, such a master would be enough to suppress the whole universe and shine for thousands of years. But here, a group of such masters appeared like cabbages. As far as he only knew the Demon Emperor, Kuan Peng, Azura Demon Lord, and Lucifer. Although he didn't know the others, to be able to be mentioned in the same breath as these people, they should be invincible masters. They must have left an illustrious name in history, so it was impossible for them to not be famous. Qin Fong, Emperor Qin. Yi Shiwen suddenly remembered. Wasn't Emperor Qin's original name Qin Fong? It was just that many years had passed, and people were used to calling him Emperor Qin. As for his original name, very few people would mention it. Over time, slowly, very few people knew that Emperor Qin's original name was Qin Fong. Compared to the others, Qin Fong gave him a bigger shock. Although the rest of the people were also illustrious, they were too far away from his era. But Qin Fong was different. The legend of Emperor Qin was still a legend, and it still made many people sigh. And he was actually Qin Fong? Why is it like this? Why are all these peerless experts here? Yi Shiwen felt a little strange. He vaguely seemed to have grasped something, but it seemed that he had let go of something. He couldn't think of anything for a while. Hey kid. Suddenly, Qionyou opened his mouth and said to Yi Shiwen, Senior Qionyou, what can I do for you? Yi Shiwen asked. At least you still have some manners. Much better than those guys. Qionyou said, why don't you go and compete with them? Yi Shiwen smiled bitterly. It wasn't that he felt that he couldn't compete with these famous predecessors in history, but he was too shocked just now and completely forgot about this point. I don't know what's the point of competing? Yi Shiwen asked. Don't you know that in the ancestral dragon sermon, only 10 outsiders are allowed to enter except for our clan's dragon god? Apart from these 10 people, the rest can only wait outside the mountain. Qionyou explained to Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was a little stunned. He didn't expect there to be such a rule. Yi Shiwen immediately gritted his teeth. This time, he had to participate in the ancestral dragon sermon. In the ancestral dragon sermon, there was likely to be some description of this strange place. I wanted to know why. Okay, I understand. Isn't it just a battle? In my life, I'm not weaker than anyone. Even if they are not peerless legends, even if they are invincible emperors, I will still go. Yi Shiwen said. Good. You are ambitious. However, these people are not to be trifled with, so I advise you to go all out from the beginning. In the end, the ancestral dragon will select 10 people from among you, so just do your best. Qionyou smiled. It looked a little wretched, as if he had tricked another person. Alien battlefield, here I come. Yi Shiwen continued to stride in the sky. Every step he took caused the sky and earth to collapse. With every step he took, the whole world collapsed one after another. The scene was incomparably terrifying. Yi Shiwen's body was surrounded by battle intent. He wanted to completely defeat everything. In the blink of an eye, he had already rushed to the alien battlefield. In this alien battlefield, everyone was already fighting. Any one of them could dominate the world, but now they were fighting here. It was not hard to imagine how terrifying it was. Yi Shiwen's aura was too powerful. As soon as he entered the battlefield, it immediately alarmed the experts. A figure leaped up from the void. "Watch me defeat you." There was a loud shout. It was a general in battle armor. He let out a terrifying roar. He only blasted out a spear. It was as if a huge galaxy had blasted out. Along with his long spear, the entire sky was cleansed. "Who are you? Tell me your name." Yi Shiwen let out a huge roar and blasted out a punch. The universe rotated with his 6 paths of reincarnation fist, and then directly blasted out. "I am Xiao Bufan." The general did not hesitate and directly told Yi Shiwen his name. However, his attack did not stop for a moment and blasted towards Yi Shiwen. Rumble! The collision between the two actually caused the entire universe to resonate. The blazing light illuminated the entire world. Looking from afar, it gave people a terrifying illusion as if their hearts had stopped beating. Both sides staggered. Yi Shiwen's expression was dignified. This person turned out to be Xiao Bufan. He remembered that in the long river of history, there was once an ordinary general who went against the heaven's will and killed his way to become a war emperor. He was the strongest general since ancient times. He opened up the battlefield's killing way. It was unknown how many people achieved the way because of this, and the war king and war sage were said to have obtained a part of Xiao Bufan's inheritance. They actually cultivated such tyrannical strength and were conferred the title of king. One could imagine how terrifying this person was. He could be sure that this Xiao Bufan was definitely not the terrifying war emperor in history. Otherwise, it would be far more than this. "My name is Yi Shiwen." Yi Shiwen also reported his name. For the strongest general since ancient times, even he must maintain a considerable amount of respect. Such a person must also be respected. "Ha! Your physical cultivation is not bad. It's rare for you to have a confrontation with me." Xiao Bufan burst into laughter. His laughter shattered the stars and actually caused a huge explosion in the entire universe. A chariot appeared under his feet. It rushed across the stars and rolled towards Yi Shiwen. This entire chariot was actually pulled by a 9-headed golden dragon. These 9-headed golden dragons opened their bloody heads and swallowed the world. Their entire bodies rose against the current like the Milky Way and fiercely bombarded towards Yi Shiwen. And this was just the appetizer. Xiao Bufan finally raised the long spear in his hand on the chariot. As soon as the spear intention was released, the world collapsed. Chapter 27:12. The long spear light dragged out a galaxy spear light. One could see how terrifying his strength was. The battle intent on his body burned fiercely and rushed into the sky. Yi Shiwen didn't cower. He didn't have the slightest bit of fear in the face of the strongest battle emperor in the universe. He would have to fight against these strongest experts if he wanted to reach the pinnacle of the universe. Moreover, this was only the battle emperor's youth. He couldn't be considered at his peak. If he couldn't even defeat this, how could he dare to say that he could reach the end? He waved his fist, and the stars in the sky seemed to be pulled up by a mysterious force. Then they revolved around him and started to reverse. He attacked with all his might. The golden dragon soared into the sky and opened its bloody mouth. It collided with Yi Shiwen's fist. The terrifying power collided, and the shockwave caused the entire universe to tremble. The two of them had just started fighting, and the battle was already so intense. There was a scream, and a golden dragon was smashed into pieces by Yi Shiwen's fist. Its tendons and bones were broken. It was a tragic sight, and dragon blood sprayed into the sky. If Yi Shiwen's physical body was comparable to that of the dragon race in the past, then there were very few people in the dragon race who could resist his physical body and not be defeated. He was also an invincible expert with his physical body alone. Ha ha ha, this is great. Let's fight again. The battle emperor pulled the chariot, turned around, and pounced towards Yi Shiwen once again. He swooped down, and his expression didn't change because of the previous exchange. The long spear traversed the sky. and the long spear was still dripping with blood. It was the blood of the invincible experts who had been killed by him since ancient times. Countless years had passed, but it was still emitting immortal divinity. The golden light shone brightly, and it illuminated the entire universe. Soon, Yi Shiwen discovered that the golden blood that dripped down had turned into a vast sea of blood. It was boundless, and there was no end to it. It was hard to imagine how such a sea of blood had evolved. This kind of blood contained infinite power. It was unknown which supreme expert had left it behind. The stars in the sky had lost their color because of the light, and they were instantly swallowed by the golden light. This was a huge battlefield that was formed by the blood-colored ocean. In this battlefield, the strength of the battle thearchs had also risen to the pinnacle. In this battlefield, my strength is invincible. Everyone shall perish under my spear. The battle thearch's voice was incomparably majestic as it reverberated throughout the universe. Really? I want to give it a try, Yi Shiwen faintly said. His blood was also boiling inside his body. After all, he didn't always have the opportunity to fight against these invincible experts. Yi Shiwen would have been crushed to death with just a finger if they were at their peak. However, they were still in their infancy. So, their strength was almost the same. So, they could fight to their heart's content. Layers of sword chi appeared under Yi Shiwen's feet and spread out, tearing apart this golden sea of blood. He wanted to break open this battlefield. Otherwise, if the aura of the Battle Emperor continued to increase, he might really be in trouble at that time. Yi Shiwen discovered that the sword chi that he had slashed out was quickly swallowed by this sea of blood. Any one of these sword chi was enough to cut down the stars. However, it was now swallowed by this sea of blood. One could imagine how terrifying this sea of blood was. Yi Shiwen's expression was incomparably solemn. This battle arch was much stronger than he had imagined. He was already so powerful in his youth. It was hard to imagine the glorious scene of him defeating all the heavens and realms in the future. However, he wasn't afraid. He was confident that he wouldn't lose to anyone under similar circumstances. He clenched his left hand into a fist and punched out. It turned into 6 paths of reincarnation and suppressed all enemies. At the same time, the sword will of the ruler condensed in his right hand. The sword will shocked the heavens, and the wails of ghosts and wolves could be heard. Once it appeared, it would suppress all strong enemies. Boom! Yi Shiwen's terrifying attack directly set off terrifying waves on the sea of blood. Shui Changkong instantly exploded. Opposite Yi Shiwen, the Battle Emperor didn't hesitate at all. The spear light broke through the sky and crushed everything. He didn't use any fancy moves. It was just a simple battle. In this aspect, it was even purer than Yi Shiwen's martial arts. Therefore, he was the first Battle Emperor since ancient times. He had opened up the supreme path of killing for the future generations. Hong long long long. Both sides collided. Yi Shiwen's terrifying fist strength and the sword light shattered everything. They collided with the spear light. The aftermath of the clash swept across the entire world. It directly evaporated the sea of blood. It broke the battlefield of the Battle Emperor. One must know that this blood was the blood of peerless experts who had been killed over the countless years. Even if it was placed there, it wouldn't dissipate even after millions of years. However, it was now evaporated by the aftermath of the battle between both sides. One could imagine how terrifying the scale of the battle between both sides was. There were some faint cracks on the body of the Battle Emperor. In the battle with Yi Shiwen, he was at a disadvantage. His physical body wasn't necessarily stronger than Yi Shiwen's. However, his secret techniques were inferior. His secret techniques weren't perfect. However, Yi Shiwen was using complete Emperor-level martial arts. Therefore, his power was superior. However, he didn't have the slightest fear. With a loud roar, the chariot under his feet rumbled and started to move. Everywhere it passed, it formed a real universe. His divine kingdom instantly expanded. He wanted to use the power of heaven and earth to suppress Yi Shiwen. The power of heaven and earth was mobilized by him to crush all strong enemies. What a heaven-defying technique this was. Even if he was only a youth, he was already terrifyingly strong. With this level of divine kingdom, don't even think about breaking me. Yi Shiwen slashed with his sword. At this moment, the battle emperor had already rushed over. The chariot under his feet had already disappeared without a trace. It had turned into a whole universe and was constantly suppressing Yi Shiwen. Meanwhile, the battle emperor himself rushed over with a terrifying aura and fought with Yi Shiwen. Both sides' moves were large and powerful, ordinary and simple. However, when they slaughtered their way over, there were great Tao laws that appeared, rumbling, drowning out heaven and earth, extremely terrifying. Bang! 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 In the blink of an eye, Yi Shiwen and the battle emperor had already exchanged more than 1,000 moves. Both sides used their full strength in every move. They didn't dare to hold back at all. Compared to fighting with others, it was unknown how many times more rigorous it was. A slight mistake could result in death by the opponent. No matter how much one admired the opponent, one couldn't hold back at this moment. This was how a fight between top experts was like this. One move was enough to kill. Bang! Yi Shiwen's physical body was unarmed. Once again, he blasted against the battle emperor's spear. The battle emperor's palm that was holding the spear started to bleed. His physical body started to scatter. In this head-on battle, he was completely at a disadvantage. The battle emperor's face finally became extremely serious. The strength of Yi Shiwen's physical body had completely exceeded his initial expectations. It was even more terrifying than the strongest top-grade divine tool. It was not difficult for Yi Shiwen to resist his spear head-on. Yi Shiwen's strength was unparalleled. He directly rushed over and attacked. He didn't show any mercy. Although he had some respect for this legendary powerhouse, he knew that he must obtain these 10 spots to preach. He must figure out what was going on. No matter what kind of strong enemy he was, he had to suppress them. He didn't give the battle emperor any time to recover. He directly rushed over. His fists shook the sky, and blood splattered. For the first time, the battle emperor suffered a serious injury. There was a huge hole in his chest. He looked extremely miserable. If there were outsiders here, they would definitely be extremely shocked. This was a supreme existence in the past. He had challenged the world with his spear and had never met a worthy opponent. Now he was in such a miserable state. It wasn't that he wasn't strong enough. It was that Yi Shiwen was too strong. However, the battle emperor didn't seem to care at all. His entire body was intertwined with immortal divine light that swept out continuously. Boom! Once again, the spear was sent flying. This was because the battle emperor's arms had exploded and turned into a bloody mist. Naturally, he couldn't hold on to his spear anymore. This time, he was completely at a disadvantage. Initially, the gap between them wasn't that big. However, once Yi Shiwen gained the upper hand, Yi Shiwen quickly grasped that little advantage and expanded it into a gap that was difficult to surpass. This was a battle between top-notch experts. It was far more cruel than what ordinary people could imagine. Bang! 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 Yi Shiwen didn't hold back at all. He attacked repeatedly, bombarding the battle emperor's body. The battle emperor seemed to have suffered heavy blows. Countless heavy blows caused his entire body to explode. He didn't have the prestige he had at the beginning anymore. An invincible figure who had once shaken the entire universe had now fallen to such a miserable state. Even though it was just a defeat in his youth, if this news were to spread, it would still be enough to shake the heavens and earth. An unimaginable powerful figure was rising. After defeating the battle emperor in one go, Yi Shiwen's aura rose to the peak. He was powerful to the extreme. Although he had consumed a considerable amount of qi and blood, his condition had risen to the extreme. This was an unimaginable state. Right now, he was the general trend. Who would dare to fight against him? Yi Shiwen looked up to the sky and let out a long roar. Even the stars were trembling. This battle was too satisfying. It was unimaginably satisfying. He hadn't had such a satisfying battle in a long time. The battle emperor was indeed a powerful opponent. If there had been the slightest bit of carelessness in the previous battle, the outcome would have been completely different. At this moment, another figure slowly appeared. A long sword tore through the sky. By the time Yi Shiwen appeared, it was already in front of Yi Shiwen's head. In an instant, it had already pierced into Yi Shiwen's head. Poochie! Blood splattered. Chapter 27:13. The long sword instantly pierced into Yi Shiwen's head, piercing through his skull. However, things were not over yet. Yi Shiwen suddenly opened his eyes, and an astonishing radiance burst out from his eyes. Then he slapped his palm out. Boom! The void shook, and a large part of the void collapsed. A figure was slapped by Yi Shiwen's palm. His body was almost torn apart, and blood was constantly splashing out. Cough, cough, cough! The figure kept retreating and kept coughing up blood. Yi Shiwen's attack also pierced through him. Bang! There was a huge roar, and the long sword that had pierced through Yi Shiwen's forehead instantly collapsed and turned into iron filings. The ghastly hole in his head was also recovering at an astonishing rate. However, his face had also paled quite a bit. He had expended quite a bit of his vitality in the battle with Jean Duan, and before he had fully recovered, he had been heavily injured again. His soul had almost been destroyed by a single sword strike. It was simply fatal. This sword attack was too terrifying. Even if Yi Shiwen wasn't in his peak state at that time, but his imposing aura had already climbed to the peak. An ordinary assassin would have been scared to death if they saw him, let alone daring to attack him. This in itself represented that this person was extraordinary. Yi Shiwen's aura had risen to the peak at that time. In fact, it was not the best time to attack. The so-called trend of the situation was obviously not in the best state. Many things that seemed impossible could be done under the trend of the situation. When one's aura rose, one could often achieve things that others could not. However, he still attacked Yi Shiwen. His courage was indeed extraordinary. If he wanted to assassinate Yi Shiwen, he could only wait until Yi Shiwen's vitality was restored to its peak. Then, it would be much more difficult to kill him. Therefore, this was a suitable time to attack, but also not a suitable time to attack. If the timing was good, it would be a one-hit kill. If the timing was bad, it would be a dead end. Obviously, the opponent was also a master-level assassin. Just the aftermath of the battle between Yi Shiwen and the Battle Emperor was enough to suppress an ordinary Divine King to death. The fact that he could hide at the side without moving proved that he was powerful. He raised his head and saw that a figure was about to hide in the void. However, he still caught sight of the figure. It was the Hidden Devil Clan. Moreover, it was an expert of the Hidden Devil Clan. He had fought with the Hidden Devil Clan many times during this period. Therefore, he was very familiar with them. Therefore, he couldn't mistake their auras. However, there should only be one person in the Hidden Devil Clan who could appear here and possess such frightening assassination skills. It should be the hidden ancestor of the Hidden Devil Clan. The hidden ancestor's strength was too frightening. There were rumors that the hidden ancestor had once assassinated an Empyrean lord. No one knew if such a rumor was true or false, but for such a rumor to dare to spread, it in itself showed how terrifying the hidden ancestor was. But now that he had provoked him, Yi Shiwen had no intention of letting him go. You want to leave? Yi Shiwen sneered, and circles of space ripples appeared on his body in an instant. They instantly locked him in place, and all kinds of space law ripples emerged all at once. The place that was originally his hiding place had instantly become his prison. In terms of space comprehension, Yi Shiwen could be said to have reached the pinnacle. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to truly control a person like the hidden ancestor, who also had amazing attainments in space. The hidden ancestor could appear and disappear unpredictably and kill people not only because of his speed, but also because of his supreme understanding of space. Yi Shiwen found the hidden ancestor's figure very quickly. As expected, he was controlled by the hidden ancestor's space cage. Yi Shiwen's figure suddenly leaped up, and the blood in his body was ignited to the extreme. He blasted a punch down. 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Fist shakes the world. Boom! Yi Shiwen's punch blasted the hidden ancestor's physical body into pieces. However, at the critical moment, a blazing light shot over and instantly pierced his chest, blasting a huge bloody hole. The hidden ancestor's figure reformed in the distance. In the previous confrontation, he was severely injured by Yi Shiwen. However, Yi Shiwen didn't find a good place to hide, and his chest was pierced. This was the first time. For the first time, there was an expert in the Tao of assassination who could actually injure him in a head-on fight. The Tao of assassination lay in the element of surprise. Naturally, the ability to fight head-on was much weaker. Even the hidden devil clan, whose physical body was stronger than ordinary creatures, was no exception. Head-on fighting wasn't their forte. Although the hidden devil clan had been carrying out reforms in recent years and consciously nurtured a group of ordinary geniuses who could fight head-on, the effect was actually quite limited. This was because they lacked such secret techniques and abilities as compared to other clans. Therefore, Yi Shiwen thought that it was already in the bag. Who knew that such a thing would actually happen? It was simply subverted. This hidden ancestor was much more terrifying than he had imagined. During the assassination, he could pierce through the hidden ancestor's sword when the hidden ancestor's aura was at its peak. In a head-on fight, he still had the ability to injure the hidden ancestor. Such an ability had never been seen in the hidden devil clan later on. As expected, the hidden ancestor was one of the few experts in the Tao of assassination since ancient times. He was already ridiculously strong. Yi Shiwen only hesitated for a moment and immediately realized that the hidden ancestor had already pounced over again. The long sword was in front of Yi Shiwen's head, and he wanted to use the same trick to blast Yi Shiwen into pieces. Only such a lawless person would dare to do this. Bang! How could Yi Shiwen not have the slightest defense this time? At the critical moment, his eyes suddenly opened. The eye of redemption bloomed and solidified the space in front of him. The hidden ancestor's long sword pierced into the space, but it was completely solidified. Yi Shiwen attacked with lightning speed and blasted out a punch. He wanted to kill the hidden ancestor completely. The hidden ancestor's expression didn't change. His body seemed to be moving horizontally, and he moved backward to avoid Yi Shiwen's punch. Yi Shiwen suddenly took a step and chased after him. The hidden ancestor's speed was already so fast that he couldn't be seen. It could be said that he was unparalleled. However, Yi Shiwen's speed was faster than him, and he caught up with him in a matter of minutes. Boom! This punch blasted directly on the hidden ancestor's body. Bang! The hidden ancestor's physical body collapsed on the spot, and his bones and flesh flew everywhere. It looked extremely miserable. After being hit by Yi Shiwen's punch that could cut down the sun, moon, and stars, the hidden ancestor's physical body that wasn't too strong was shattered on the spot. His blood dissipated in the sky, and he didn't reconstruct his body again. Yi Shiwen heaved a sigh of relief. He didn't dare to let his guard down. This battle had completely alerted him. The experts that he was going to face were too terrifying. Any one of them was an invincible figure in the world. Compared to the Battle Emperor, the battle with the hidden ancestor could be said to be extremely fast. In just a few moves, the hidden ancestor died in his hands. However, this was the essence of the Tao of assassination. If he missed his target, it was likely that he would die. It was the same for the battle between top experts. Without concealment and surprise, although the hidden ancestor's head-on combat ability could still be considered to be 10 streets ahead of ordinary divine kings, he was far inferior to a freak like Yi Shiwen, who could kill all strong enemies head-on. Hence, he wasn't a match for Yi Shiwen at all. It was just like an adult facing a child. This battle had also given him a lot of benefits. Usually, who could have such terrifying combat power to fight with him in the same realm? These were the strongest people in the myriad heavens and realms. Without this opportunity, there wouldn't be such an opportunity in the next time. Suddenly, an endless thunderbolt fell. The entire thunderbolt seemed to contain all things in the world. It was the origin of all things and contained all the great Tao. It fell on Yi Shiwen ruthlessly. The thunder character talisman in Yi Shiwen's body trembled violently. It was triggered. He suddenly moved horizontally. However, he saw a figure appearing in the world. It was a figure whose body was wrapped in thunderbolts. There was a terrifying masculine force on his body that was enough to suppress all things in the world. Yi Shiwen didn't know this person, But it didn't hinder him from guessing this person's identity. Because if he didn't guess wrong, the thunder character talisman in his body should have come from this person. In the future, he could be considered to have obtained a part of this person's inheritance. "Who are you?" Yi Shiwen asked. "I am the Thunder Emperor," said the figure slowly. "There is some familiar feeling on your body. Hence, I specially came to fight with you and take out the thing in your body to take a look." The Thunder Emperor's words were extremely overbearing. He didn't give any room for Yi Shiwen to object. However, his perception was indeed very sharp. Even though he was far away, he still discovered the Thunder character talisman in Yi Shiwen's body. "What if I say I'm not willing?" said Yi Shiwen lightly. He wasn't very familiar with the name of the Thunder Emperor. However, it wasn't surprising. There were many hidden experts in the myriad worlds. Many of them only caught a glimpse of them. They didn't really appear in the world. Nobody knew about them until they died. This wasn't strange. "Then, I'll kill you and see for myself," said the Thunder Emperor lightly. He didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. "Count me in. I also want to fight with you." Suddenly, another figure came. An incomparably huge figure crossed the vast sky and came over. It actually transformed into its original body that was tens of millions of feet tall. It was a huge, ferocious beast. Its whole body was wrapped in black scales. Only its pair of blood-red eyes had an indestructible will. It was as big as a mountain. Just looking at it made people feel cold. Yi Shiwen felt that the star beast's bloodline in his body had a faint impulse to burst out uncontrollably. It seemed that this was a special situation caused by the appearance of this giant beast. Chapter 27:14. Beast Ancestor. Yi Shiwen suddenly recognized the origin of this incomparably huge, ferocious beast in front of him. It was the beast ancestor who once wreaked havoc in the world. A long time ago, a monstrous, ferocious beast once appeared and wreaked havoc in the world. It could swallow a world in one bite. The more worlds it swallowed, the stronger it became. In the end, it alarmed an emperor, and the battle was earth-shattering. In the end, the emperor was seriously injured, but the beast ancestor was still killed. Even with the strength of an emperor, it was seriously injured and had to go into seclusion for 10,000 years to recover. One could imagine how powerful this beast ancestor was. Some people said that the beast ancestor had already entered the realm of enlightenment. Some people said that the beast ancestor had not entered the realm of emperor and was only invincible with his innate magical power. No one knew the origin of the beast ancestor. When he was born, he had reached the level of wreaking havoc in the world, and no one could stop him. Some people said that he might have been born before the chaos, and some people said that he might be a ferocious beast raised by a great expert in the distant past. There were many opinions, and they all seemed reasonable. Until now, most of them were just rumors, and no one knew his origin. However, the beast ancestor had left behind many bloodlines in the world. Without exception, all of them were huge, ferocious beasts. Although they were not comparable to the beast ancestor, they were enough to wreak havoc. The star beast bloodline in Yi Shiwen's body was actually a bloodline left behind by the beast ancestor back then. Therefore, the star beast bloodline in his body was affected as soon as the beast ancestor appeared. It quickly became restless. After integrating the star beast bloodline, Yi Shiwen did not eradicate it. At first, it was because he did not have the ability. Later, he also considered that there might be a chance to evolve to the level of the beast ancestor. Then, he would really have the ability to go against the natural order and could challenge an emperor. In any case, it would be extremely terrifying. Both of them were people who were closely related to him. Beast ancestor, Thunder Emperor, any one of them could be regarded as a powerful opponent. Now that both of them appeared together, Yi Shiwen's expression was filled with unprecedented passion. Boom! A staff appeared in Thunder Emperor's hand, and countless thunderbolts fell from the sky. His figure was majestic, as if he was the center of the universe. Thunder Emperor directly attacked. 6 paths of reincarnation. Yi Shiwen bellowed and punched out. He was barehanded against the opponent's thunderbolt. His punch turned into a sky full of fist shadows, and collided with the Thunder Emperor's thunderbolt on the spot. He didn't hold back at all. Bang! 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 Every time Yi Shiwen collided with the power of thunder, it would erupt with the sound of clashing gold and iron. It was as if two groups of iron weapons had fiercely collided with each other. Yi Shiwen's blood and qi were burning. Such an opportunity was really rare. From ancient times to the present, perhaps only a few such opportunities would appear. The Thunder Emperor's methods were astonishing. His various thunder techniques were extremely mysterious and dazzling to the eyes. Yi Shiwen had studied the Thunder character charm every day. However, he was still inferior to the Thunder Emperor who specialized in the law of thunder. Yi Shiwen had never heard of many exquisite moves and remarkable abilities of the Thunder Emperor. Boom! That powerful beast ancestor also joined the battle. His entire body was the strongest divine tool. He was invincible, and he was not affected by the thunderbolt at all. The two experts didn't say much, and they joined forces to attack and kill Yi Shiwen. Any one of them was enough to rival Yi Shiwen. Now that the two of them joined forces, Yi Shiwen instantly fell into a disadvantageous position. 6 paths of reincarnation, Sword of Dominator, Sky-Flipping Seal. Yi Shiwen used all kinds of methods. He had evolved his martial arts to the absolute peak. He didn't dare to hold back at all. If he held back at all, then he would be the one who would die. At the same time, he also forced his potential to the absolute peak. Only under such circumstances could he improve his Tao. Any one of these people had once dominated an era. Now that they were gathered here, it was definitely the most terrifying manifestation of willpower. If Yi Shiwen wanted to be invincible, if he wanted to embark on an unprecedented path, these people were the obstacles that he had to overcome. However, they were already so difficult to deal with in his youth and had yet to achieve Tao. If he had to face their true bodies one day in the future, how terrifying would it be? Kill a bloody path. I must get the qualification for the ancestral dragon's preaching. Yi Shiwen roared. This was related to his decisive battle 10 years later, and he couldn't delay it. No one could stop him from moving forward. The Thunder Emperor stepped on the thunderbolt, as if he was the incarnation of the thunderbolt. He was incomparably terrifying. Every bit of the thunderbolt power had gone through thousands of refinements and was enough to destroy the stars. Now, all of them were blasted towards Yi Shiwen. At this moment, the thunder character charm in Yi Shiwen's body suddenly flew out. Under his control, it crazily absorbed the thunderbolt energy and was constantly becoming stronger and transforming. Why do you have a thunder character charm too? The Thunder Emperor couldn't help but be a little stunned. It seemed like he didn't expect Yi Shiwen to have a thunder character charm too. Moreover, it was even more powerful and complete than the thunder character charm in his body. What's so strange about that? I'll tell you when I have the chance in the future. Yi Shiwen let out a long roar, and had already pounced in front of the Thunder Emperor. His speed had already broken through the sound barrier, and the void had completely shattered. Bang! Yi Shiwen's fist blasted on the Thunder Emperor's body, and a battle armor appeared on the Thunder Emperor's body. The Thunder Emperor's battle armor instantly protected the Thunder Emperor within it, but it was useless. The power of Yi Shiwen's fist was too terrifying. His fist blasted the Thunder Emperor's protective armor, and his fist blasted on the Thunder Emperor's body. Puff! The Thunder Emperor spat out a mouthful of blood, and his entire body was sent flying. It was unknown how many stars he had crashed into, but his eyes were still filled with disbelief. Yi Shiwen was too strong. On the other side, the beast ancestor's huge body had already crushed down directly. Its claws were monstrous, and it was just clawing down. However, it contained a kind of secret technique. This secret technique could shatter the heaven and earth, and it contained countless great Tao. Bang! Yi Shiwen turned around and similarly blasted out a 6 paths of reincarnation fist, and it collided with the beast ancestor's claw. Clang! A sound like the clashing of gold and iron rang out. It was an extremely terrifying scene, as if a golden spear and armored horse had appeared. Yi Shiwen took a few steps back. His entire body was trembling and numb. The beast ancestor's physical body was even more terrifying than he had imagined. It had almost surpassed the Golden Dragon King. It was extremely powerful, and it could be mentioned in the same breath as him. In reality, Yi Shiwen should be slightly stronger overall. After all, Yi Shiwen's cultivation level was slightly lower. On the other side, the beast ancestor was also constantly being injured. A huge bloody hole had appeared on his claws, and blood was flowing out continuously. He had suffered a huge loss from Yi Shiwen in the previous exchange. Yi Shiwen circulated his martial arts to get rid of the numbness in his body. At this moment, the Thunder Emperor had already pounced on him again. His speed was like the fastest lightning in the universe, and he arrived in front of Yi Shiwen in an instant. The Thunder Staff swept out like a spear, and the shockwave directly slashed towards Yi Shiwen's throat. Bang! At the critical moment, Yi Shiwen raised his hand to block this fatal blow. The Thunder Emperor was clearly trying to kill him, but he managed to block it. Die, sky-flipping seal! Yi Shiwen took this opportunity, and even before the Thunder Emperor could react, he directly smashed the sky-flipping seal. Bang! The Thunder Emperor let out a muffled groan, and his entire body flew out. He spat out a mouthful of blood. He had suffered a huge loss and was smashed by Yi Shiwen's sky-flipping seal. One could imagine that even the Thunder Emperor, who was an expert since ancient times, couldn't bear it at this moment. Boom! Yi Shiwen was also directly hit. At the instant when the Thunder Emperor was blasted away, the beast ancestor also seized this opportunity and clawed over. The powerful beast claw even pierced through Yi Shiwen's body, and blood splattered out. He was directly injured. Yi Shiwen was extremely furious, but at this moment, he wasn't here with his main body. Otherwise, he wouldn't have suffered such a huge loss. However, the beast ancestor's terror was evident from this. Even if Yi Shiwen wasn't here with his main body, no one could seriously injure him. Blood dyed the void of the universe red, and the three of them had their own blood. Yi Shiwen continued to attack, and faced two unparalleled opponents. He wasn't afraid at all. Boom! 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 In the blink of an eye, the battle had already exceeded 1,000 moves. Not a single one of the 1,000 moves was fake. It was a head-on battle every single time. Against such opponents, even the slightest thought of using tricks was courting death. Yi Shiwen didn't dare to have the slightest idea of taking advantage of the situation. So, he had to fight head-on every time. Even his gilded tyrant form had cracks appearing on it. Such a battle was rare unless he encountered someone who had completely suppressed him in terms of cultivation realm. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to encounter such a battle. Especially after his gilded tyrant form reached the greater mastery stage. He could suppress most living beings and reach the apex. And now, he actually suffered such a huge loss in the battle against the Thunder Emperor and the Beast Ancestor. Of course, his opponents weren't any better. Although the Thunder Emperor's expression remained the same, his spiritual body had become extremely thin, almost becoming translucent. This was caused by Yi Shiwen's attack. Meanwhile, the Beast Ancestor's body was covered in scales, and his flesh was a bloody mess. This was the most brutal battle. For God Kings, it was basically difficult to encounter a battle stronger than this. Finally, I'll finish you off with a single strike. Yi Shiwen roared into the sky. His martial arts incarnations were added to his body, and his power instantly skyrocketed. He threw a punch. Bang! The Thunder Emperor let out a blood-curdling screech and was blasted apart. It transformed into a mass of the purest lightning energy and was absorbed by Yi Shiwen's thunder character charm. Yi Shiwen felt that his understanding of the power of lightning had skyrocketed in an instant. Chapter 27:15. After absorbing the power of the thunder, Yi Shiwen instantly comprehended a lot of thunder magical powers. At the same time, he also understood that, as he had guessed before, these people were not the real body. He did not cross the river of time and come to a special time node to meet these invincible figures. These should be the wills left by those super powerhouses. This should be the inside of the ancestral dragon Daos diagram. Those who came to comprehend in the past should have left their imprints. Now, with his arrival, these imprints were activated and revived. And now, it wasn't his real body, but a sliver of his will that had entered. That was why he was able to fight against these invincible figures. With the ancestral dragon's Tao lectures as a platform, he was able to transcend space-time and fight against the supreme experts from countless years ago. Some of these top powerhouses had already been confirmed dead, so it was impossible to have a chance to fight again. Some had disappeared, and some had simply not appeared at all. It was absolutely impossible to fight with these people in the outside world. At this time, there was a chance to fight with these people. This was an excellent opportunity to hone himself. In order to sharpen the knife quickly, the whetstone itself must be strong enough. Ordinary people were not qualified to be sharpened, or even hurt. But these strongest people from ancient times to the present were qualified to be sharpened one by one, fighting their own way, killing their own world, and standing side by side with them. At this time, outside the ancestral dragon Taoist diagram, the ancestral dragon Taoist diagram that had not changed for countless years suddenly burst into thousands of rays of light, soaring into the sky, filling this small world. Countless creatures began to tremble, trembling under the dragon's might. At this time, Yi Shiwen was also shrouded in this mass of light. How can this be? Why is the ancestral dragon Taoist diagram moving? This change immediately alarmed countless powerful dragon gods, many of whom were dragon kings. It was because the ancestral dragon Taoist diagram was too important. No one dared to relax in the slightest. This change, did Yi Shiwen really touch the imprints of the various powerhouses in the ancestral dragon Taoist diagram? Someone exclaimed, "It can't be. Since ancient times, there hasn't been a single person who has been able to touch the mark of a powerhouse. The last person who touched the mark should be when the Qin Emperor came here to comprehend it." Some people couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Many of the younger ones hadn't even seen such a change and had only heard of such a situation in legends. They couldn't help but feel a chill run from the soles of their feet to their heads. Could it be that he really has the ability to stand shoulder to shoulder with those monarchs? Someone speculated while trembling. It must be known that those who could leave a mark in the ancestral dragon's Tao lecture diagram, or those who could trigger the mark, would eventually become supreme monarchs or supreme powerhouses of an era in the universe. They were at the level of founding ancestors of many powerful races. Even if they weren't monarchs, they had left their illustrious names in the long river of history. Some of them even suspected that they were still alive, but they had never appeared. Yi Shiwen's potential was really too amazing to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with such people. Many people regretted letting Yi Shiwen in because they had never thought that Yi Shiwen would be able to achieve this step. He had touched the mark of the matchless powerhouse in the ancestral dragon's teaching diagram. Since ancient times, those who had achieved this had achieved great achievements without exception. And in their dragon clan, no one had been able to do this for countless years. Thinking of this, they couldn't help but feel a little depressed. They were guarding such a supreme treasure, but they couldn't fully exert the power of the ancestral dragon Taoist diagram. According to the old ancestor of the dragon clan, the old ancestor who made the ancestral dragon Taoist diagram said that if an ordinary person wanted to comprehend the ancestral dragon Taoist diagram, it was nothing more than observing and comprehending the martial arts in it. How much one could comprehend depended on how much talent one had. But if one could trigger the ancestral dragon Taoist diagram and activate the soul of the ancestral dragon scattered in the world, then it would be completely different. It was said that the ancestral dragon would personally manifest and preach for him. An emperor would personally preach for him. What an amazing effect, and what a glory it would be. Such a glory had not been enjoyed by the dragon clan for a long time. One could imagine how depressed they were. This Yi Shiwen is really incredible. He is really going to turn into a real dragon and soar into the sky. Someone couldn't help but sigh. Among the dragon clan, many experts of the younger generation had completely given up the idea of competing with Yi Shiwen. Are you kidding me? This person can stand shoulder to shoulder with the supreme powerhouses of the past. Isn't it courting death to compete with him? Many people still had their own self-awareness. At this time, Yi Shiwen didn't know that the outside world was in chaos. He looked at the beast ancestor. At this time, the beast ancestor's body was already badly damaged. The continuous fierce battles with Yi Shiwen had made him feel extremely exhausted. At this time, a ball of thunder power appeared in Yi Shiwen's hand. It was the thunder staff. He had condensed the thunder power based on his understanding of the power of thunder. This symbolized the supreme power of Thunder Tao. Crash! Countless thunder power like thunder dragons bombarded towards the beast ancestor. At this time, Yi Shiwen was like the reincarnation of the current Thunder Emperor. However, he was even more terrifying than the Thunder Emperor. The beast ancestor screamed and howled miserably under the onslaught of the thunderbolts. In fact, he had even opened his mouth wide in an attempt to devour the thunderbolts with a torrential might. If the original body was here, even if it was in a similar realm, it would be enough to devour the heavens and the earth. But now, it was just a wisp of the real spirit. It couldn't do that. Under Yi Shiwen's aggressive and continuous strangulation, it completely turned into a sky full of blood rain and was absorbed by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen could feel that the star beast bloodline in his body seemed to be transforming at an astonishing speed. It was like an animal burning its tail and turning into a human. This was a transformation from a low level to a high level. His star beast bloodline was affected by this ball of beast ancestors' blood essence. He could even use this as an opportunity to transform into the beast ancestors' bloodline in one go. At that time, once Yi Shiwen transformed into the beast ancestor's true body, his pure power would increase by many times. In terms of physical body, the beast ancestor was indeed one of the strongest that Yi Shiwen had seen. Unlike the powerful physical body that Yi Shiwen obtained through continuous cultivation, the beast ancestor was almost born with a natural bloodline. He was invincible. He dared to challenge the emperor if he didn't have the confidence to do so. After absorbing the beast ancestor's bloodline, Yi Shiwen felt that he had become more powerful. Then, he only felt a ball of soft light shrouding his body. When he reacted, he found that he was already on a huge teaching platform. There were countless dragon gods around him. Each of them looked fierce and evil. Their bodies were emitting powerful auras. Even if they were real spirit imprints, they were still extremely powerful. The ancestral dragon's teaching diagram could be used as a powerful instrument at the same time. It was inseparable from these dragon gods. They had once flown out on their own and saved the dragon clan. These dragon clans' gazes fell on him. But Yi Shiwen didn't care. He didn't care at all. He just sat on the first praying mat leisurely. He looked at the looming huge figure in the sky. It was the ancestral dragon. He was the first invincible person in history to achieve Tao. The martial technique he left behind not only affected the dragon clan, but also countless people. The coiling dragon palm that he learned in his early years was also somewhat related to the ancestral dragon. It could be said that he had obtained some benefits from the ancestral dragon. These seemed to be nothing, but when accumulated, it would be a very terrifying accumulation. It wasn't without reason that the Dragon Island could stand tall in the world for countless years. Many people had received the ancestral dragon's grace. Next to Yi Shiwen, there were 9 praying mats arranged in a row. They should be the remaining 9 places. It seemed that he was the first one to arrive. To be able to carve out a bloody path from the competition and obtain these 10 spots, there was no doubt that they were the strongest among the strong. They were extraordinary. Even the Emperor might fail. After all, the Emperor had countless opponents when he was young. Although those supreme powerhouses hadn't crossed the final step, they might not be weaker than the Emperor in this realm. Each of them had their own powerful methods. It was just that they weren't known. The second to arrive was the Demon Emperor. He didn't even have a wound on his body. He looked very calm. It was also possible that he had eliminated all his injuries. Of course, it was more likely that he had crushed all his opponents. If Yi Shiwen had only met one opponent, he might have been able to do it. But he had killed 4 invincible people in a row. It was inevitable that he was injured. After the Demon Emperor, Kuan also appeared on the praying mat. He looked a little embarrassed. He looked around arrogantly and found that there were two people who were faster than him. He couldn't help but look a little gloomy. He looked at Yi Shiwen and felt a little strange. He felt that Yi Shiwen seemed to have some connection with him. It was just that he couldn't figure it out. After him, the Qin Emperor also appeared on the praying mat. He had some injuries, but they weren't serious. He had also suffered some injuries when he fought several supreme powerhouses in a row just now. And after the Qin Emperor, it was the Azura Demon King. He was the invincible person who had once created the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. So Yi Shiwen took another look at him. Speaking of which, these people seemed to have some relationship with him. They had the opportunity to cross paths, even though they were separated by a long time. But did the appearance of the Azura Demon King mean that Lucifer had failed? That super powerhouse who had beaten the devil world to the point that they had no choice but to admit his identity as the 8th royal family would also fail. Chapter 27:16. It could be said that Lucifer was an old powerhouse in the devil world. He had subdued the entire devil world with his own strength and had given the fallen angel race a foothold. Moreover, he had single-handedly created the cultivation technique of the fallen angel race and had made the fallen angel race practice devil power. He was the most legendary person apart from the great devil kings of the devil race. However, it seemed that Lucifer hadn't fallen into the devil world yet, so he should still be a genuine birdman. However, Ling Fei wouldn't leave this matter at that if she knew that he was cursing her ancestor like this. However, the 6th person soon appeared after the 5th person. This person was holding a big cauldron. It was exuding a strong medicinal fragrance. His gaze was incomparably deep. He wasn't inferior to the previous people. In fact, his imposing manner was even better than theirs. Earth Emperor Shinnong. Yi Shiwen hadn't recognized the origin of this person. However, the Qin Emperor who stood next to him softly revealed his identity. It seemed that the Qin Emperor was the most recent person among these people apart from Yi Shiwen. So, it wasn't strange that he could recognize the Earth Emperor Shinnong. Yi Shiwen also felt deep veneration. The 3 ancestors of the human race had raised the horn of rebellion during the rise of the human race. However, the 3 emperors of the heaven, earth, and human race had led the human race on the road of rapid development. Then, the 5 emperors had thoroughly established the status of the human race. The Earth Emperor had the most sacrificial spirit among the 3 emperors. The legend of Shinnong tasting 100 herbs had been passed down to this day. It seemed that that big cauldron should be the Shinnong cauldron of the later generations. However, it hadn't attained enlightenment yet, so it couldn't be regarded as the Shinnong cauldron. After Emperor Shinnong, a young man quietly teleported in. Tool Emperor. Yi Shiwen immediately recognized this person. He had obtained a part of the Tool Emperor's refining inheritance in the past. The Tool Emperor had a great influence in the 10,000 worlds. Almost all the people who had refined tools in the later generations had been his disciples and grand-disciples ever since he had established the path of refining tools. So, he had a great influence on the later generations. It wasn't that no one had refined tools before. However, no one had attained enlightenment by doing so. This had made the Tool Emperor's strength even more unparalleled. He had opened a path that no one had come before. He did not expect that even he had once observed the ancestral dragon's Tao lecture here. After the Emperor of Dilemmas, another silhouette was teleported in. It was a peak expert of the original Devil clan. He had an ancient aura, extremely ancient and distant. In fact, he even had an ancient aura similar to that of the ancestral dragon. Among the demons, only the original demon clan could compare with the dragon clan in terms of heritage and heritage. It was the most primitive demon clan in the demon realm. It was even known as the ancestor of all demons. All demons originated from the original demon clan. It wasn't hard to guess this person's identity. He was the first devil king in the devil world, the original devil king. The supreme mission that created the current situation of the devil realm was also extremely old in terms of seniority, but he was still considered a descendant of the ancestral dragon. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but suck in a mouthful of cold air as he looked at these people who had already appeared. Without exception, all of them were Emperor level characters. They were invincible existences who had once left an illustrious reputation in the myriad worlds. Some Emperors might not have any reputation or left anything after they attained Tao until they finally disappeared. However, these few were extraordinary. Even the Hidden Ancestor, the Beast Ancestor, the Thunder Emperor, and the others who were killed by him were also the best of the best. They were unimaginably strong. Yi Shiwen still had to look up to them when they were at their peak. Yi Shiwen even wanted to ask the Azura Demon King if he had really discovered the underworld. Did he really break through the reincarnation cycle and suppress life and death? However, he still held back. The current Azura Demon King had not attained Tao yet. He should not have done such earth-shattering things. It would be useless to ask. After the original Demon King, another figure appeared. It was an old man with an introverted aura. His whole body was hidden in a cloak. Yi Shiwen had no way to see through him. He had no impression at all. He was a person that he had never seen or even heard of before. There were too many hidden dragons and crouching tigers in the world. Not everyone had conquered the world. Perhaps there were, but he didn't know who this person was. After this unknown person, a body full of starlight, like a star, landed on the 9th praying mat. It was Star Lord Wanxiang. It was another person who had been unstoppable for a period of time. In the end, he did not attain Tao. However, he made a name for himself in the second battle against the heavens. He killed several masters of the Tian clan in succession. He was awe-inspiring. In the end, he died under the personal attack of an emperor of the Tian clan. Although he died very early, it did not hinder his invincible reputation. If he did not die so early, people guessed that he was likely to be the next invincible emperor. Everyone's eyes were on the 10th person, who would get the last praying mat. Finally, it did not take long for that figure to appear. It turned out to be Lucifer. However, the originally proud and aloof Lucifer looked quite embarrassed at this time. Many of his golden clothes were also torn. Many of his feathers had fallen off. Obviously, he had experienced a hard battle. Yi Shiwen could imagine how fierce the competition for the last position would be. In order to let the ancestral Gregon see their combat power, everyone would definitely do their best. Although all of them were not real people, but the imprints of the great Tao, Yi Shiwen still felt a little scared when he thought about it. That kind of scene was simply terrifying. He had even wondered if there would be a day when the next generation would come, and he would become one of them, fighting for a seat with them. Yi Shiwen's eyes seemed to be able to see through the long river of time and see the distant future. However, he was only absent-minded for a moment because the huge body of the ancestral Gregon appeared faintly. The ancestral Gregon opened his mouth and began to preach. Suddenly, golden lotuses fell from the sky, and sweet springs gushed out from the ground. It was a very ancient and obscure language. It was the dragon language. Moreover, it was the ancient dragon language. It was a language created by the ancestral Gregon that was close to the way. Almost every word was a gem. Every word could cause the resonance of the great Tao. It was not something that ordinary people could understand at all. Even listening to it was a great pain and torture. It was also because of this that the ancient dragon language slowly became a language that only a few dragon gods could master. Ordinary dragons, even when they reached adulthood, couldn't bear to communicate in this language that was close to the Tao. Slowly, they had to settle for the second best, which was the current dragon language. However, this was not difficult at all for the 10 people present now. Regardless of whether it was heard or not, it was not difficult at all. Yi Shiwen only felt that every word represented a kind of great Tao, an unprecedented Tao sound. Although he had heard Tao sounds before, it was the first time to hear the emperor preach personally. This was only a Tao diagram that had been imprinted. Originally, it shouldn't have been able to reproduce the original appearance of the Tao lecture. However, it was said that the ancestral Gregon had once made a move to enlighten it. Therefore, this ancestral Gregon's Tao lecture had become so extraordinary. It had attracted countless powerhouses who had once made a name for themselves in the heavens. Even Yi Shiwen himself had been attracted. However, with the strength of the Dragon Island, It was impossible for the Dragon Island to agree to open the ancestral Gragon's Tao lecture unless they were powerful to a certain extent. Therefore, only a few dozen people could leave behind the mark of the Great Tao. However, it could be regarded as the essence of the heavens since ancient times. The mysterious space in his body operated frantically. It was trying to record every note of the ancestral Gragon's speech. Every note might contain a kind of great Tao and could evolve into a kind of power technique. Many of the power techniques in the Dragon Island weren't created by the ancestral Gragon. Instead, they were formed after many powerhouses had comprehended the ancestral Gragon's Tao lecture diagram. Therefore, every word was very precious. Everyone closed their eyes and comprehended the rare Great Tao. Yi Shiwen only felt that every note was in line with his own Great Tao. Although the ancestral Gragon was talking about his Great Tao and didn't specifically answer Yi Shiwen's questions, Yi Shiwen felt that all his questions could be answered here. Many Great Tao that he couldn't understand in the past could be understood now. The ancestral Gragon's Tao lecture pointed to the essence of the Great Tao. It wasn't a special kind of martial arts elaboration. Instead, it was an elaboration of martial arts and the essence of the Great Tao. The higher the cultivation, the deeper the feeling. The sound of the Great Tao was centered on the ancestral Gragon and constantly expanded outwards. The closer they were to the ancestral Gragon, the clearer they could hear and the more they could comprehend. The other powerhouses at the foot of the mountain could also hear it. However, it was obviously not as clear as the 10 praying mats. He seemed to be wandering in the ocean of the Great Tao. He didn't know how much time had passed. Suddenly, the ancestral Gragon's Tao lecture stopped. Yi Shiwen calculated the time. Only about a year had passed. It shouldn't be the time to stop yet. Then, the dragon god came out to explain that it was time to compete for the seats again. This time, the top 10 could still grab the praying mats, while the rest could only listen to the Tao lecture at the foot of the mountain. Yi Shiwen knew that it was just a great Tao imprint, but he was still extremely speechless. However, it was just as well. He had learned a lot in the past year and felt that his strength had improved a lot. It was time to find someone to verify it. Before he could react, a light flashed, and he was already out of the Tao lecture stage and appeared at the foot of the mountain. Yi Shiwen Dai. A loud beast roared, and the huge body of the beast ancestor suddenly appeared. Although he was killed by Yi Shiwen once, as long as the Great Tao imprint contained in the ancestral Gragon's Tao lecture wasn't erased, he would never die and continue to be born. He had just finished the first Tao lecture, and he couldn't wait to find Yi Shiwen to fight. Good. I want to see how much I have improved in the past year. Yi Shiwen laughed loudly. He wasn't afraid and rushed forward. Chapter 27:17. Boom! Both of them exchanged blows, and the heavens and earth crumbled. Yi Shiwen's current might was extremely strong, but the beast ancestor was eager for revenge and had no intention of holding back at all. The sun, moon, and stars were annihilated in an instant. Both of them fought at the foot of the mountain, but they were instantly transported into the universe. Both of them knew that the ancestral dragon must have made a move. In this region, no one could defy the will of the ancestral dragon. Even if it was merely an incarnation of the great Tao imprint, it was not something that they could resist. Moreover, both of them were not here in their true forms, so they were naturally no match for the ancestral dragon. The battle between both of them made the entire silent universe feel as though it was about to awaken again, and all the power was boiling. After Yi Shiwen forced the beast ancestor's attack to retreat, a shocking radiance burst out from his eyes. Both of his hands formed a seal, and the overturning sky seal instantly slashed down, and it seemed as though the entire universe was crushing down. The beast ancestor roared, and the chi and blood on his body danced like giant dragons. Every giant dragon was tens of thousands of feet long, and they were majestic. As they casually swept past, many stars in the distance were shattered. Yi Shiwen, I want you dead. The beast ancestor roared, and countless giant dragons pounced towards Yi Shiwen. Break for me! Yi Shiwen sneered and blasted out a punch. On the other hand, he suppressed the restless bloodline of the star beast in his body, and on the other hand, he blasted out a silver river that swept in all directions. Bang! The beast ancestor roared furiously, and his body kept twisting, colliding with Yi Shiwen's fist. In an instant, blood splattered everywhere and dyed the entire starry sky red. A huge hole was blasted out of the beast ancestor's claw, and it looked extremely terrifying. Yi Shiwen was able to injure the beast ancestor with a single strike. It could be seen how much Yi Shiwen had improved after listening to the teachings for more than a year. Compared to a year ago, there was simply an earth-shattering change. The beast ancestor's eyes were crimson red, and his front claw was still dripping with blood, dripping into the universe. Very soon, this place became a vast ocean, and there was no end to it. It was a sea of golden blood. Beast blood explosion. Yi Shiwen, do you think it's that easy for me to bleed? The beast ancestor laughed heartily. Suddenly, the sea of blood that was constantly extending over suddenly formed a crazy, explosive force. Countless energy was blasted out and fiercely bombarded towards Yi Shiwen under the guidance of a strange force. Compared to the beast ancestor's attack just now, it was countless times more powerful. It was enough to send chills down one's spine. Yi Shiwen's eyes were slightly dazed. The beast ancestor was indeed terrifying. Compared to the rumors, he was even stronger. Compared to a year ago, he was also much stronger. Although he couldn't hear as clearly as he was on the praying mat at the foot of the mountain, he was still able to hear the ancestral dragon's sermon. Hence, his body was also undergoing a shocking transformation, becoming stronger and stronger. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to seek revenge on Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen hadn't seen this move before. He didn't know if it was a secret technique that he hadn't used before, or if it was something that he had learned in just 1 year. When he thought of this, even though he already knew that these people were imprints of the Great Path and not the true bodies of living beings, he still gasped. In more than a year, the beast ancestor's progress was astonishing. The sea of blood was vast, and the waves reached the sky. The blood water filled the sky and drowned everything in an instant. It was accompanied by a terrifying power that could destroy the world, and it fiercely bombarded towards Yi Shiwen. This scene was really terrifying. This move couldn't be avoided at all. It directly sealed off all of Yi Shiwen's escape routes. Poof! Yi Shiwen snorted coldly. His eyes suddenly opened, and they were shining brightly. It was the eye of redemption. He instantly hid himself in countless layers of space. It seemed like the energy bombarded his body, but in fact, all the attacks had already been completely diverted away through the eye of redemption. Although such an attack was terrifying, the effect was quite ordinary in the face of Yi Shiwen's life-saving technique. Then, Yi Shiwen directly leaped out, stepped on the sea of blood, and pounced towards the beast ancestor. From top to bottom, every pore on his body was emitting terrifying flames. These seemingly unbreakable and unextinguishable terrifying sea of blood were instantly ignited like oil on the surface of water. It was actually the Nanming mythical fire. Under Yi Shiwen's control, the Nanming mythical fire had become many times more tyrannical. It burned everything in the world, and even the beast ancestor sea of blood was no exception. Wherever it passed, it completely turned into a sea of fire. The beast ancestor didn't expect Yi Shiwen to be able to use a top-notch flame like the Nanming mythical fire. Most importantly, although the Nanming mythical fire was impressive, it also depended on who was using it. If an ordinary person used the Nanming mythical fire, it wouldn't even be able to move him a little. Yi Shiwen's strength had completely exceeded the beast ancestor's expectations. This was because he didn't expect someone to be this strong. He had seen countless experts in his life, but none of them had such complicated techniques. Moreover, all of them were top-notch. His fist technique was invincible, his sword technique was unstoppable, and now he could also use the Nanming mythical fire to such a superb level. He was simply ridiculously strong. In fact, he even suspected that the person in front of him wasn't a human at all. Instead, he was a young heaven's pride of the ancient Phoenix realm's haired Phoenix clan. It was precisely because of this that he was able to injure the beast ancestor so severely. In an instant, Yi Shiwen had already pounced in front of the beast ancestor. Although he was in the beast ancestor's divine kingdom, he was still advancing like a hurricane and didn't stop at all. Yi Shiwen bombarded his fist. He wanted to use the same trick again. He wanted to beat the beast ancestor to death. He might not have been able to do it in the past, but now he had the ability to do it. He could do it to such an extent. Bang! 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 The battle between the two of them made the entire universe's stars tremble violently. Yi Shiwen's offensive was simply terrifying. His chi and blood were strong, and the battle style of both of them was just a rampage. There wasn't the slightest bit of technique to speak of. In other words, their techniques had already reached the pinnacle, so it didn't matter anymore. Their strength was the embodiment of their techniques. Originally, such an intense battle might drag on for hundreds or even thousands of moves before there was a clear winner. But now, in less than 10 moves, the beast ancestor had already been beaten back by Yi Shiwen, and his blood was constantly splattering. Yi Shiwen had clearly gained a huge upper hand. At this moment, the beast ancestor wanted to fight with Yi Shiwen, but he was no longer as casual as before. In fact, he wasn't even a match for Yi Shiwen at all. If I can kill you once, I can kill you again. Yi Shiwen laughed out loud. He constantly verified what he had comprehended from the ancestral dragon sermon over the past year or so. He kept attacking, and the more he fought, the stronger he became. As more and more things he comprehended were transformed into his combat power, Yi Shiwen's strength was also constantly increasing, and he was terrifyingly strong. Bang! The beast ancestor was once again attacked by Yi Shiwen, and he was blasted away on the spot. He had used the sky-flipping seal and combined 3 seals into one. Although Yi Shiwen had the upper hand now, he didn't dare to relax even a little. The beast ancestor was an expert who had once thrown the world into chaos and dared to challenge an emperor. Such a person could be said to have experienced hundreds of battles. As long as he was given a slight chance, he could instantly turn the tables, and he would never let his opponent have such a chance. The beast ancestor kept retreating, and all his defenses were broken by Yi Shiwen. In the sky, a sword swept across, and it was tens of millions of feet long, and it slashed down. Almost the entire universe was slashed in half. Of course, it was impossible to slash the entire universe in half, but the beast ancestor was directly slashed, and he was blasted away by Yi Shiwen's sky-flipping seal. Yi Shiwen didn't show any mercy, and he directly attacked. The beast ancestor's recovery speed obviously wasn't as fast as Yi Shiwen's. Yi Shiwen's recovery speed and attack speed were truly astonishing. Therefore, he was able to injure the beast ancestor in one move before he could regain his senses. Roar! The beast ancestor's angry and desperate roar reverberated in the universe, and it was incomparably miserable. For the second time, he lost again, and it was even more miserable than the first time. During the first time, he was still able to fight Yi Shiwen well, but now, he was completely at a disadvantage from the start. Bang! A huge explosion sounded, and the beast ancestor's physical body exploded on the spot, and the terrifying power shook the entire universe. Before he died, the beast ancestor exploded crazily and wanted to drag Yi Shiwen down with him. He wouldn't let Yi Shiwen have an easy time even if he died. Yi Shiwen's eyes were slightly cold. The beast ancestor's self-destruction was not weak, and it made him look a little miserable. However, it was only a little miserable, and nothing more. If it was a year ago, he might have been seriously injured, but it was different now. The beast ancestor had improved a lot, but Yi Shiwen's improvement was even greater. However, Yi Shiwen didn't have the time to catch his breath, because there were people who wouldn't let him have the chance to catch his breath. In the previous competition for the praying mat, he had clearly been in the limelight, so he became a thorn in everyone's eyes. Especially compared to the few emperors, Yi Shiwen didn't have that kind of supreme-level coercion. After that kind of person achieved Tao, everything related to them would be sublimated in an instant, and it was completely different. Even Yi Shiwen didn't have the confidence to fight with the Azura, Devil King, and the others at this moment. It wasn't that Yi Shiwen was too weak, but they were too strong. And the others naturally understood this, so they all stared at Yi Shiwen. In an instant, more than a dozen extremely tyrannical figures appeared in the surroundings, and any one of them was not inferior to the beast ancestor, or even stronger. They were invincible figures who had once dominated a region since the ancient times. So many people have gathered here, they really think highly of me. Yi Shiwen laughed out loud, and he didn't have the slightest bit of fear. On the contrary, his expression became even more excited, and the blood in his body surged like the raging waves of the sea beating on the shore. Boom! Yi Shiwen suddenly stomped on the ground, and his entire body was like a dragon, rushing into the group of more than a dozen people. Chapter 27:18. Yi Shiwen, time's up. An ice-cold voice interrupted Yi Shiwen's state of enlightenment. Yi Shiwen opened his eyes and saw the black dragon elder in front of him. His expression was cold. Obviously, he didn't have a good impression of Yi Shiwen. Only I know who was the first to wake up from this dream. Yi Shiwen stretched his body. It was as if he had been dreaming for 10 years. Now that he woke up, the world was different. The black dragon elder looked at Yi Shiwen and couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. Did this guy really sleep for 10 years? Impossible. According to the previous vision, he must have stimulated the imprint on the ancestral dragon's teaching diagram. It was impossible that there was no change at all. But looking at his current appearance, it seemed that he had just woken up. Yi Shiwen looked at the ancestral dragon's teaching diagram reluctantly. Although it was only 10 years, he had gained a lot in these 10 years. In particular, he had gained a lot from fighting with the strongest people since ancient times. Every time he preached the Tao, he would fight for a slot, preach the Tao again, and fight for a slot again. It was a process of continuous accumulation and transformation. What he understood in the process of preaching the Tao would rapidly transform into his own understanding in the process of fighting. Yi Shiwen didn't dare to hold back when fighting against those top people. Otherwise, he would be the one to die. Yi Shiwen was no longer satisfied with defeating the beast ancestor and the others. He directly challenged the imprints of the great Tao left behind by the demon emperor and the other immortal emperors. There were victories and defeats. The further he went, the more things he comprehended, and the more victories he had and the fewer defeats he had. Yi Shiwen's strength had also undergone earth-shaking changes after he had gone through so many bloody battles. 10 years ago, he didn't dare to imagine that he could reach such a level. More importantly, in these 10 years, he used the content of the ancestral dragon's teaching as a foundation to comprehend a magical martial art. This remarkable martial technique was called primal chaos. Yi Shiwen had fused all of his knowledge to create this technique. It was based on the scene of the creation of the world, and had opened the primal chaos as its core. It could sweep away everything and annihilate all powerful enemies. There was only one move. However, Yi Shiwen wouldn't use it in an ordinary situation. Otherwise, he might get injured. It was a lost cause technique that would hurt both sides. What Yi Shiwen needed to do now was to control the power of the primal chaos and turn it into a move that could be used in ordinary times. When that time came, Yi Shiwen would have a killer weapon in his hands. It wouldn't be difficult for him to seriously injure the enemy if he was caught off guard. This move was still in the process of being perfected. Originally, it would have taken hundreds of years or even thousands of years to perfect a move of this level. However, during this 1 year, he had directly used those super experts to experiment in the ancestral dragon Tao diagram. These super experts had directly become his experimental subjects. Through continuous battles, he had slowly perfected this unique skill. This move was, Yi Shiwen, can you go now? At this time, the black dragon elder asked. He was also afraid that Yi Shiwen would stay here and not leave. That would be troublesome. Many wills were projected down and were paying close attention to Yi Shiwen. It had been a long time since anyone had been able to touch the ancestral dragon Tao diagram. Everyone wanted to know what Yi Shiwen had obtained from it, and how powerful he had become. "Don't worry, I won't stay here and not leave." Yi Shiwen smiled slightly. How could he not see the other party's worry? He only took a step forward. Boom! A terrifying momentum soared into the sky. The Black Dragon Elder, who was next to Yi Shiwen, almost couldn't control his body and was pushed aside by the shock wave caused by the momentum. Many people on the Dragon Island suddenly became nervous. Many people thought that Yi Shiwen was planning to kill on the Dragon Island. He's so bold. He actually dares to fight on the Dragon Island. No, he's not planning to fight, but why is his momentum skyrocketing? Someone suddenly realized that Yi Shiwen didn't have the intention to fight, but it was an indisputable fact that his momentum was rising. "You idiots, can't you see that he is breaking through?" A calm voice came out. "Greetings, Patriarch." Many voices said in unison. A man wearing a golden dragon robe slowly appeared in the void. His eyes were sharp, deep, and bright, but at this time, he was staring at Yi Shiwen. He's not planning to fight. He's fusing, breaking through, and digesting what he has gained in the past 10 years. The Golden Dragon King said in a low voice. In his eyes, Yi Shiwen was constantly becoming stronger. With every step he took, his momentum would become stronger. Obviously, he was completely digesting what he had gained in the past 10 years. Obviously, Yi Shiwen had comprehended a lot during the 10 years of meditation on the Ancestral Dragon's teaching diagram. Now that he had returned to his main body, he only needed to swallow those heavenly treasures that could increase his power to immediately transform his original understanding into real combat power. At this time, Yi Shiwen's body was like a water tank that wasn't filled with water. After the expansion, it became incomparably huge. As long as water was injected, it would immediately be filled. Yi Shiwen kept swallowing heavenly treasures that could increase his power. His cultivation was also increasing at an astonishing speed. With every step he took, his strength increased greatly. Very soon, he had reached the limit of an ordinary peak divine king. For an ordinary divine king, it might be a bottleneck that they would be stuck at for a lifetime. However, Yi Shiwen didn't even have the slightest pause. He crossed over in an instant and was almost invincible. The Golden Dragon King's pupils suddenly shrank. At this time, Yi Shiwen had already climbed to the same level as him. It wasn't looking at the level, but he could feel the palpitations when he met someone of the same kind. This was standing at the peak of the entire Divine King realm. Any higher, and it would be another level. Since ancient times, people who could kill their way into this realm were very rare. Therefore, the 10 great divine kings often needed hundreds of thousands of years, or even millions of years to be replaced. There were too few people who could kill their way into this realm. Of course, there were still some people who could kill their way into this realm, including those who had already lived in seclusion. Even so, compared to the huge group of cultivators, it was still very rare. The current Yi Shiwen could already be on equal footing with him. He had such qualifications. This was something that he had never imagined. Originally, even if Yi Shiwen defeated the Demon Eagle King, it was nothing in his eyes. The gap between an ordinary divine king and him, one of the 10 great divine kings, couldn't be calculated with logic. But now everything was different. Yi Shiwen's strength had completely broken through everything. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed such a situation. It was simply too ridiculous. How long had Yi Shiwen practiced martial arts? He didn't even have a fraction of his own strength. He truly felt a saying, "The younger generation will surpass us in time." Could it be that he was really a person who was born to face calamity? Even so, his cultivation speed was simply too shocking. It was as if he was soaring into the sky, causing people to tremble with fear just by looking at him. And Yi Shiwen's aura was still constantly rising. Even the Golden Dragon King felt a little frightened. Could it be that Yi Shiwen planned to directly rush into that realm in one go? Impossible. Even if it was just his combat power, it would be an incredible thing. He hadn't been able to rush in for so many years. What kind of diploma did Yi Shiwen have? Fortunately, Yi Shiwen finally stopped and didn't directly rush in one go. This made the Golden Dragon King feel slightly relieved. Otherwise, he really wouldn't be able to have a good time. At this time, his thoughts drifted far away. Since a year ago, the battle between Yi Shiwen and Pure Moon King had been a hot topic in the myriad heavens and realms. God knew how many people were waiting to see Yi Shiwen suffer a setback. He had been too outstanding over the years. With so many people helping Yi Shiwen to hype up this matter became incomparably hot. It even surpassed the whereabouts of NID, who seemed to have just been discovered. Everyone's attention seemed to be focused on this matter. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that Yi Shiwen really had the ability to challenge Pure Moon King. But now, he also had to admit that perhaps everyone had misjudged this time. Among these people, he was no exception. He had completely misjudged Yi Shiwen. He was too strong. At this time, for some reason, the figure of the Phoenix King appeared in front of his eyes. The guy who wanted to compete with the Heavenly Duke. When the Phoenix King rejected his marriage proposal and agreed to let the Heavenly Phoenix Lady marry Yi Shiwen, he thought the Phoenix King was crazy. The bloodline of the Heavenly Emperor and the Golden Dragon bloodline could be said to be one of the noblest bloodlines in the world. The combination of the two would certainly give birth to a world-shaking powerhouse. At that time, both races would obtain many benefits. They might even regain the glory of the two races when they dominated the world countless years ago. Although the current Dragon Island and the ancient Phoenix Realm were considered to be prosperous, it was not worth mentioning compared to the glory of countless years ago. At one time, he thought that the Phoenix King was simply senile. Otherwise, he would be boundlessly arrogant. Did he think that he could rely on his own strength to make the Phoenix race rise? Originally, a marriage between the two would have been the best way. But now, it seemed that the old Phoenix King might not be so senile. Letting Hua Menghan marry Yi Shiwen was not purely out of love for Hua Menghan. Perhaps it was more because he saw Yi Shiwen's potential. This time, I misjudged. The Golden Dragon King couldn't help but let out a slight sigh. In the distance, Yi Shiwen naturally didn't know about the Golden Dragon King's lament. He was still a little depressed. He actually couldn't rush to a higher realm in one go. He had now smoothly entered the peak Divine King middle stage. Originally, he wanted to rush to the late Divine King realm in one go. He felt that his preparations were very sufficient. It should be possible. At least after listening to the Tao for 10 years, his understanding of the great Tao was sufficient. The only thing he lacked was cultivation. Unfortunately, he was a step behind. Chapter 27:19. It was just that he had not accumulated enough. He had already digested the last bit of the Golden-backed Dragon Carp King's skills. That had pushed his cultivation level from the mid-stage king-ranked realm to the peak of the mid-stage king-ranked realm. He was now comparable to the 10 great god kings. However, if he wanted to go one step further and reach the late-stage king-ranked realm, he was still one last breath away. He did not have any more skills to do so. That was why he could not do it in one go. The good thing was that he had gained enough enlightenment. All that was left was to accumulate more skills and then reach the late-stage king-ranked realm in one go. When that time came, his battle skills would go through an earth-shattering change. Slowly accumulating was one way. However, if he could swallow some other rare treasures, he would be able to reach the late-stage king-ranked realm in one go. However, Yi Shiwen thought about it carefully and realized that there was nothing suitable for him. The Golden-backed Dragon Carp King and the Nirvanic Immortal Elixir had all been used to reach the peak of the mid-stage king-ranked realm. They had been used up. The rare treasures that the various factions had compensated him with were not of much use to him anymore. Secondly, they had all been absorbed by the mysterious space, which had kept the mysterious space running for the past 10 years. Otherwise, Yi Shiwen would not have been able to make such a huge breakthrough in just 10 years. Listening to the teachings was one thing, but being able to transform it into one's own cultivation level was another. It was all thanks to the mysterious space's transformation. If not, Yi Shiwen would have had to go back and cultivate in seclusion for a few hundred years to completely understand and transform the teachings. Although it is still a little lacking, it is enough to deal with King Pure Moon. Yi Shiwen clenched his fists, his expression unusually confident. 10 years ago, he had said that he only had a 10% chance of success. However, The ancestral dragon Tao discourse was even more miraculous than he had imagined. Now, he had a 100% chance of success, let alone monarch Pure Moon. He was even confident that he could crush the Golden Dragon King. Although Yi Shiwen was limited by his cultivation level and his battle skills did not soar, in terms of enlightenment, he had far surpassed them. The people of Dragon Island also looked at Yi Shiwen in shock. They saw his aura rising little by little. Finally, he stopped. Everyone couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Finally, his aura didn't continue to grow without limit. All the elders of the Dragon Clan could see that Yi Shiwen had such an amazing change because he had comprehended the ancestral dragon's teaching diagram. Especially when he had just broken through, Yi Shiwen didn't restrain his aura. It was really scary. Compared to when he had just entered the Dragon Island, Yi Shiwen was more than twice stronger. 10 years was just like a snap of the fingers for them, but Yi Shiwen could become so strong. They couldn't help but feel extremely depressed. Many of them had also comprehended the ancestral dragon's teaching diagram in the past countless years. Although they had gained a lot, none of them had such an amazing change as Yi Shiwen. They were almost scared to death. Just the aura that leaked out was already so shocking. If they were to really fight, they simply didn't dare to imagine how tyrannical they would be. They had only felt such a feeling when they were facing the Golden Dragon King. No, they even faintly felt that Yi Shiwen was even more terrifying than the Golden Dragon King. Thank you for the warm hospitality of the Dragon Island this time. I can't thank you enough. See you later. Yi Shiwen cupped his hands and said towards the direction of the Dragon Island. Then his entire body disappeared into the void. In the blink of an eye, Yi Shiwen's whereabouts could no longer be sensed. On the Dragon Island, many people breathed a sigh of relief. He alone had pressured the entire Dragon Island to the point that they couldn't breathe. It had always been the Dragon Island that pressured others to the point that they couldn't breathe. It was the first time that they were pressured to the point that they couldn't breathe. They couldn't help but feel a little ashamed and annoyed. However, they couldn't do anything about it. When they thought of that tyrannical aura sweeping over, they couldn't help but feel a little weak in the legs. Yi Shiwen has left the island. This news was quickly discovered by the spies of the major forces who were waiting near the Dragon Island. Normally, the Dragon Island definitely wouldn't allow these spies to wander around the Dragon Island. However, this time was an exception. After all, they also knew why these spies had come. It was for Yi Shiwen. As time passed, the 10-year agreement between Yi Shiwen and the Pure Moon King had become widely known in the universe. Everyone also knew that Yi Shiwen and the Pure Moon King were going to fight in 10 years. However, many people treated this news as nonsense at first. After all, although Yi Shiwen had become famous recently, there was still a huge gap between him and the Pure Moon Monarch, who had dominated the world for countless years, and the 10 Great Kings. Even though the Pure Moon King was ranked at the bottom of the 10 Great Kings, it was no exception. After all, no one knew what kind of trump cards these 10 Great Kings had. The so-called ranking was just a speculation. However, as more and more news came, the matter of Yi Shiwen challenging the Pure Moon King became an ironclad fact. Everyone couldn't understand. No one would casually mention such a matter. Pure Moon King was one of the 10 great divine kings. He had countless years of prestige. It was impossible for him to break his promise. Although Yi Shiwen's reputation wasn't as illustrious as Pure Moon King's, he was also invincible among his peers. Even among the older generation, there were few who could rival him. No one would believe that such a person would casually say such a thing. It was simply impossible. Since he knew that he might lose, why did he still dare to make such a challenge? Therefore, this became the top 10 things that countless people were most concerned about. 10 years wasn't long, but it wasn't short either. In the blink of an eye, it had already passed. In particular, the Dragon Island had intentionally or unintentionally released the news that Yi Shiwen was comprehending the ancestral Dragon Daos diagram. The time limit was exactly 10 years. Therefore, it wasn't difficult for everyone to guess that Yi Shiwen was probably trying to comprehend the ancestral Dragon Dao illustration to improve himself by leaps and bounds. His strength would undergo an earth-shattering transformation so that he would have the capital and strength to fight Pure Moon Monarch. Although the ancestral dragon Daos diagram was magical and had a great reputation in the heavens and realms, the Pure Moon King wasn't someone to be trifled with. Wasn't it wishful thinking to think that he could rival the Pure Moon King in 10 years? If it was that easy, the Pure Moon King wouldn't be ranked among the 10 great kings. He was almost the strongest divine king in the world. The more this was so, the more everyone wanted to know what kind of confidence Yi Shiwen had in achieving such a thing. All of a sudden, they didn't know that Yi Shiwen actually only had a 10% confidence in achieving such a thing 10 years ago. He was just using this matter as pressure to force himself. Moreover, many people in the heavens and realms didn't like Yi Shiwen. The reason why the Pure Moon King had targeted Yi Shiwen in the beginning was largely because someone had added fuel to the fire. Coupled with his relationship with the Devil Eagle King, the Pure Moon King had targeted Yi Shiwen indiscriminately. Now that this matter had been continuously promoted and fermented by these people, it had become the matter that attracted the most attention. All the major forces that were interested in this matter sent spies to guard the vicinity of the Dragon Island. They wanted to capture the moment Yi Shiwen left and spread the news as soon as possible. Because of this, the news of Yi Shiwen leaving the Dragon Island also spread. Suddenly, the battle between Yi Shiwen and the Pure Moon King, which was already very popular, became the focus of countless people. Many people were looking forward to how far the battle between Yi Shiwen and the Pure Moon King would go. However, most people still supported the Pure Moon King. After all, relatively speaking, Yi Shiwen's strength wasn't enough for them to be so confident. The people who were most optimistic about Yi Shiwen only thought that Yi Shiwen could remain undefeated under the attacks of the Pure Moon King. Even so, Yi Shiwen's age was shocking enough. No one thought that Yi Shiwen could become that powerful after comprehending the ancestral Dragon Dao diagram. Wasn't that nonsense? After receiving the news that Yi Shiwen had left the Dragon Island, everyone who was concerned about this matter rushed to the Alliance headquarters. The battle between the two would also begin in the Alliance headquarters. Many people were even waiting for Yi Shiwen on the road that he had to pass through. However, none of them knew that Yi Shiwen had already entered the Alliance headquarters. The speed at which Yi Shiwen arrived was even faster than the speed at which they spread the news. The huge Alliance headquarters was connected to another world. It was extremely huge. In these worlds, there were two topics that occupied everything. One was naturally the upcoming battle between Yi Shiwen and the Pure Moon King. The winner would be more famous, while the loser would suffer a disastrous decline. This was something that couldn't be helped. The other matter was the discovery of the rebellious emperor more than a year ago. According to reliable information, the information and hiding place of the rebellious emperor had been discovered. It was extremely hidden and even involved the ancestral land of the hidden ancestor. It was a place that had been abandoned for countless years. The army was quickly assembling, but it was delayed because of Yi Shiwen's matter. The original commander of this army was the Pure Moon King. Now, due to the battle with Yi Shiwen, some matters were delayed. At least, they could only set off after this battle. In the Alliance headquarters, everyone was in a state of extreme excitement. Finally, this damn situation could be ended. As long as the rebellious emperor was captured and killed, the hidden ancestor wouldn't be able to jump around no matter what. Without the rebellious emperor, they would still be the surviving members of the Sky Clan. The threat to the various clans would also disappear. Many people even called the upcoming battle the final battle. The third war of resistance against the heavens might end before it even started. Yi Shiwen quietly arrived amidst such an atmosphere. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.